This is the Patriots Catch-22 podcast with Evan Lazar and Alex Barth.
I'm Evan Lazar. Evan Lazar. Hello, everybody. Nailed it. Joined as always by our spars. That's a fit. That's a match. No risk it, no biscuit.
22.
Here is Evan Lazar and Alex Barth.
So starting with the defensive line, we always joke about this. You get into the weeds of what's a defensive lineman, what's an edge defender. Do you even like the term edge defender? No, you hate it.
I included it this year since Madden put it in the game. I figured it was
since Madden put it into the game.
I knew you'd love that. I knew you'd love that.
Not because I've been telling you it exists for like 5 years, but now that it's in Madden, it's finally on your roster.
No,
projection.
I'll tell you honestly why I did it. And this is how I've always felt about edge. I think where edge is when you go through the draft, there are guys that, depending on what team drafts them and what system they'll be playing in, you have to call them an edge because you don't know.
Sure.
The thing that always bugged me is once they're on a team, you know what position they're playing because you can put them in that system, so it makes it a little clearer. But we don't exactly know how this Vrabel system is going to use certain guys. So this might be a one-year thing for me. I might go back next year when we have a better look at this defense. But for the time being, it could go either way. So I felt the need to use it this year.
Hello, everybody. And I love our semantics arguments about positions,
Yes.
About metrics, about analytics, all that kind of stuff. But edge versus outside linebacker for us is as OG as it gets. That goes back to when we started working with each other, that we were disputing those two terms. Anyways, Evan Lazar, Alex Barth with you guys for the next couple of hours here. We are live today, but I want to tell everybody what's going on here for the next couple of weeks, because yours truly is getting hitched, getting married, finally happening. Very excited about it. So I am off for the next couple of weeks to get married. Now we're going on a honeymoon to Martha's Vineyard for the week, which is our spot. So I'm very much looking forward to that.
Congratulations.
Thank you. And so that we're not going to have a live show the next 2 weeks after today, but we do have something for you because I couldn't leave you guys hanging completely. And of course, my brain is worried about filling, Catch-22 and doing Patriots podcast when I'm getting married, which is totally normal. But that's gonna happen. We're taping that ahead of time, and then we're still gonna give you guys a show next Wednesday. It just won't be live like it is today. So when you see it on YouTube or wherever you get your podcast, don't call in, don't email in, because we're not actually live on the air during that show next week. But you're only gonna miss us for 1 week. So I feel like that's a good thing. But today's show, we are going to talk about some of the latest NFL news. Not a ton going on in Patriot land right now. Frankly, nothing going on in Patriot land right now. It's completely quiet for the Patriots. But NFL trade went on, obviously, earlier this week with the Dolphins and the Steelers.
Two trades. There's another one yesterday.
There was another one yesterday.
Yeah.
What, did I miss it?
Yeah. No, I texted you about it. Darren Waller.
Oh, Darren Waller. Okay, yeah, connected. Yep.
The Dolphins made trades on back-to-back. I would love. Well, I guess it's technically not back-to-back days in July. I would love to know the last time a team made back-to-back trades in like June, July.
It's a good question. So we're gonna talk about that. We're gonna talk about some of the more the best available free agents, best available trade candidates, things like that. Just kind of talk about some of these names because we try to break down the Patriots as much as we can. And I think at this point, after doing our roster projections over the last couple of weeks, Alex, we've kind of beaten those storylines to death. I don't think there's really much else for us to talk about with the current 90-man roster. So I want to talk about some names that are in the news that are being floated in trade rumors and all that good stuff. So that's going to be the show today. And then, of course, your calls and your emails at 855-PATS-500 and at Patriots. I always forget what the email is nowadays. Podcasts@patriots.com is your email address. But just to start, I do want to talk about this Dolphins-Steelers trade. Not the Darren Waller trade, but we can get to that. The Dolphins-Steelers trade is Patriots adjacent for sure. It's an AFC East team in the Miami Dolphins, of course, but also the Steelers are on the Patriots schedule. The Patriots play the Steelers in week 3 of the regular season in September. So it's two opponents that they're going to see this year. The Dolphins
see it back to back, weeks 2 and 3.
Good point. And the Dolphins, of course, twice. So this is 3 of the 17 games on the Patriots calendar is affected by this trade. And I said this yesterday on PU, and I want to say it again because if you were a Dolphins fan listening to the show, I don't know why you would be, but if you were a Dolphins fan listening to our show, you would say the team that's won 8 games back-to-back years, you're telling us that our team is making bad moves. Like, maybe worry about your own house before you start pointing fingers at everybody else. But I besides that point, I really am perplexed by what the Miami Dolphins are trying to do. They're kind of operating to me like a team whose brass, or their head coach and their general manager, has job security, when all of the narratives and all of the reporting out of Miami is the exact opposite, that Mike McDaniel and Chris Greer, their general manager, are basically as on the hot seat as the hot seat can get hot. And
Been trying to tell you,
Mike McDaniel's like the betting favorite right now to be the first coach fired in a lot of places, and yet they're trading away two really productive players for them in Jalen Ramsey and Jonnu Smith. And I understand there were contract issues and turmoil there with those two players in terms of their future with the team, but they get back for it. Minkah Fitzpatrick, who towards the end of last season was starting to look like he might have lost a step. He could be on watch as we move forward here with Minkah, who is a player we both really like in his prime, but I'm not sure he's there anymore. And when you look at this Dolphins roster, I think there's a case that the Patriots roster might be better than the one in Miami. Miami certainly has the star power with Hill and Waddle and Tua, but
there's not much behind that.
There's not much behind that. There's not much on the line of scrimmage offensively, especially. And now their secondary without Jalen Ramsey, their cornerback room in particular, looks pretty rough. So what were your general thoughts on this trade? Because it was kind of it was a cool trade. It was an NBA, MLB style trade with players. Really, the draft picks were kind of throw-ins in this trade. They're 2027 draft picks.
I mean, I was surprised. Unless maybe the Steelers were having some contract issues with Minkah Fitzpatrick, which I know when we were texting, you had suggested might be a thing, but I haven't seen any reporting on that. Isn't Jalen Ramsey just kind of an older Minkah Fitzpatrick? Now, there'd been some reporting leading up to this that separate of Minkah Fitzpatrick and Jalen Ramsey, the Steelers had really wanted to get Jonnu Smith because Arthur Smith really wanted Jonnu Smith.
Yep.
Downgrading from Minkah Fitzpatrick to Jalen Ramsey just to get yourself Jonnu Smith. And Jonnu Smith is not the player he was in New England. He's a better player than that. The Dolphins figured him out last year, all that. He's still not worth that. So I don't really get it from either side, right? If you're the Dolphins, you move 2 good players. And if you're the Steelers, you just get worse. So it didn't make, I guess if you're the Dolphins, ultimately you get Minkah Fitzpatrick, who I think is a top 10 defensive player in football. They have bigger holes than that. I didn't get it from the Steelers, really, unless they really, really, really wanted Jonnu Smith. But you look at their tight end room kind of set.
With Pat
Freiermuth, Darnell Washington, who we both like.
Good blocker.
Feels a little like a hat on a hat.
Well, I guess we disagree maybe a little bit on Ramsey versus Fitzpatrick. I think Ramsey's a better player now than Minkah. Minkah towards the end of last season, let's call it the second half, the back half of the year last year, really started to show some signs that he was not the player that he once was at his peak. His coverage in particular seemed to really take a drop off there. Jalen Ramsey, what I think is appealing about Jalen Ramsey is that he gives you a really good player at 2 different spots. You can play him outside or you can play him at the star or the nickel position. He might even be, just throughout his entire career, Ramsey might be a better player in the slot than he is outside. He's a really dynamic slot corner. So I actually would say, as of right now, just based off of last year, that Jalen Ramsey is a better player than Minkah Fitzpatrick. And then you also get Jonnu, who they clearly like because of the fit with Arthur Smith. That's a clear system fit for them that they really, really like. I get what Pittsburgh's trying to do to me, because what Pittsburgh is trying to do is they are pushing all these chips in the middle of the pile here, and they are really going for it with Tomlin. Like Tomlin and their GM Omar Khan, they're operating like they're on the hot seat. Like that's what like executives and coaches do that are on the hot seat. They sign Aaron Rodgers, they trade for DK Metcalf, they trade for Jalen Ramsey and Jonnu Smith. These are win now, we're all in on 2025 type moves. Now, with that being said, there's obviously a path where this blows up and is an absolute disaster in Pittsburgh, just like it was with the Jets. I think it's a very similar situation, very similar layout there. It's either going to be very successful and they're going to go on a run and they're going to win some playoff games and they're going to have a really good year, or it's going to go the Jets' way and it's going to completely blow up in their face. There really doesn't seem to be any in between, but at least they're going for it in theory. The Dolphins are resetting in my mind. Like, they look like they're a team that's hitting a reset button here, and I just don't know if their brass has the job security, like I just said at the top. Like, I don't understand if you're Mike McDaniel. You need to win games. Like, you can't go into next season, and we were talking about this off the air. In particular, if Tua gets hurt, like if Tua gets hurt, the Dolphins could be picking in the top 5.
Especially
that's a top 5 type of roster without a good quarterback.
With this line,
right?
I mean, it's bad. The offense, and we've talked about that on the show before. The offensive line is bad. You're not going to catch me saying let's give Mike McDaniel the benefit of the doubt. You know that. Like, I think this has been a long time coming. I think this is the chickens coming home to roost for Mike McDaniel. This is the logical conclusion of everything they've been building towards. But, yeah, to see them handle it the way they are, I mean, I just really don't think there's a recognition of the spot that they're in. There might be some delusion in that building.
So here's their starting secondary right now without Jalen Ramsey. Storm Duck, who is a nice find by them. He was an undrafted free agent, kind of like
an elite name. One
of those guys that was just a nice find. You know,
I liked him in the draft.
That type of player. Efedi Melifonwu, Minka Fitzpatrick, Kader Coho, and Artie Burns. That's their starting secondary. And if you just look at the Patriots and compare that to Christian Gonzalez, Carlton Davis, Marcus Jones, Kyle Duggar, and Jabril Peppers, I don't think it's close.
Night and day.
I don't think it's even legitimately not close.
And then do the offensive line.
So the offensive line in Miami right now, your boy Patrick Paul,
who is I like him, but he's a complete unknown.
Projected starting left tackle right now for them.
But who's behind him? Who's really going to push for that job that they have? Exactly.
Yeah, no
exactly.
one. Like Larry Borum's like a good like journeyman veteran. He's somebody that's kicked around the league. Maybe a little bit better, but Vidarian Lowe. James Daniels at left guard, a free agent signing of theirs that they are hoping is going to start. Aaron Brewer is a good player at center. Jonas Savania, their draft pick,
unknown,
right guard. And then Austin Jackson at right tackle, who's had a tough career, really, for them. Just hasn't been
That was
great.
who they got originally when they traded Minka Fitzpatrick.
Yeah, Liam Eichenberg is a, kind of their top backup, who's also been sort of a bust for them as a first-round pick, hasn't been very good. So when you look at their roster, outside the skill positions, outside of Waddle, Hill, Tua, and then they have talent at running back. You know, Achane, Jalen Wright, those guys are good players. Ollie Gordon, drafted there now, is like their bruiser. When you look at outside their skill players, I just don't know how you look at this roster in Miami and fear anything. And granted, the Patriots, they haven't beaten the Dolphins since 2022. There was that game up here where it wasn't Tua. It was a combination of Skylar Thompson and Scoop Huntley towards the end of the season. I want to say it was the second to last week of the season, and they went to Buffalo and lost in Buffalo to knock them out of the playoffs officially. It was the Kyle Duggar pick six game. He had a pick six late in the game. I want to say it was in the fourth quarter that tilted the game to the Patriots that day. But so 4 straight losses for the Patriots against the Dolphins. They've lost 8 out of the last 9 to Miami, going back a couple years now. So the Dolphins have had their number. No doubt about it. We know that. Tua's had their number. I think that could change. I really do. This Dolphins team is sort of in a reset, and I would even throw this out there. As much as I think he's an unbelievable player, I'm not entirely sure that Tyreek Hill is not on the wrong side of the
he's not getting any younger.
Point.
It's a fair thing to point out.
Yeah,
he's not getting any younger.
I think he's a little bit on the back nine as well.
He's 31 years old. The history of wide receivers after they turn 30 is not great. And some of this is quarterback play. He had a significant drop off last year after having a career year in 2023. So
I know I'm being glass half full right now about saying the Patriots. That I would take the Patriots over the Dolphins because of the history of these two teams recently, and especially Tua's history against the Patriots. But this Dolphins team in in areas where it matters, offensive line, secondary, like those are big areas of your football team these days in the way that the NFL is played. Their first round pick was Kenneth Grant, I like him as a prospect. He's got a lot of upside. And it's similar to how when they drafted Jordan Phillips and Chop Robinson, like they're guys that have a ton of raw talent and are oozing with athleticism. But Kenneth Grant at Michigan was a little Jekyll and Hyde. Like they didn't really get him completely to flourish at Michigan.
It's also, we talked about this with the Patriots with Mason Graham. Yeah, I think Kenneth Grant's a really good player. I think not only was he underrated, he was probably part of the reason Mason Graham was rated as high as he was, and he didn't get enough credit for that. But when you have all these other holes, like defensive tackle, it's a tough position to truly build around and to use your first-round pick on and get the impact you want to get out of that pick. So I really like Kenneth Grant. I do. And I think he'll be good for them. How much impact are you getting out of a guy like that? Like he basically has to be Jeffrey Simmons, right? To justify that pick. That's kind of the apex of that.
Right.
Aaron Donald's his own thing.
Yeah.
He's not going to play like Aaron Donald. He's 330 pounds. But like he's going to have to be a Jeffrey Simmons type to justify that pick. What are you really getting on return? Even though he's a good player, just positional value, what return are you getting on that pick? When, I thought adding an offensive lineman would have made a lot more sense, or even maybe helping that secondary.
So they are all in on this defensive line. They have Kenneth Grant, their first-round pick, Jalen Phillips, Chop Robinson. These are all first-round picks.
Those are their first-round picks the last 3 years, right?
Yeah, I believe so. And then Zach Sealer, who's a really good underrated player on their interior defensive line, one of the better, top 10 level interior defensive linemen in the league. Not quite in that Chris Jones, Jalen Carter tier. Like that's kind of its own tier. But in that next wave, Sealer's not too far off.
Jalen Phillips has been in the NFL for 5 years. Oh my God, we're getting old.
And then,
although he was, because they didn't have first round picks for 2 years, so technically that is their last 3 first round picks because they didn't have one in 23 or 22.
And they still have Bradley Chubb, who I don't know what they're expecting to get out of him, but they still have Bradley Chubb. So their defensive line, their front seven is, other than their wide receivers, of course, is the strength of their team right now. But I look at these other areas of their roster and see a lot of holes in Miami, and I just am wondering if these two guys, McDaniel and Greer, are going to be the ones that ultimately are making the long-term decisions in Miami. Because if they have a 5-win season, they win 6 games next year. If Tua gets hurt, and they, some of these holes that I see and we see end up coming to fruition and costing them, then I could see them picking in the top 5, at least the top 10. And then is McDaniel and Greer even there to make those choices? So weird trade from a Miami perspective in my mind. And then they kind of doubled down on the weirdness a little bit. I got why they made the trade for Darren Waller after trading Johnny Smith, because our old friend Pharaoh Brown was their projected starting tight end immediately after the trade.
Darren Waller's 32 and was out of football last year. I don't know that he's definitively an upgrade over Pharaoh Brown. That's a lottery ticket to me, if anything.
So they trade for Darren Waller, who was, like you said, out of football. I don't know if it was all just football related. He went through a messy divorce, very public divorce with Kelsey Plum, who plays in the WNBA, and he kind of had what looked like from the outside looking in, he kind of had a little bit of a meltdown and ended up taking the year off of football. So he comes back, and by the way, had maybe one of the funniest rap videos of all time.
The one of him on the beach.
Yeah, that he published as a result of that divorce. So he comes back. Darren Waller is traded from the New York Giants to the Miami Dolphins. So now Darren Waller is the Dolphins' starting tight end, in theory. Thoughts?
Yeah. I mean, I don't know that he is their starting tight end. That's a competition. The track record of guys coming back after a year out is not great. He's 32 years old. He's dealt with injuries.
Yeah.
I don't think Pharaoh Brown's like a horrible player.
He's not horrible. He's definitely a better blocker than Darren Waller is a big receiver. He's not your traditional hand in the dirt, dig out.
Well, I saw somebody tweeted something like Darren Waller is a perfect fit for the Dolphins because he retired when they tried to make him block inside, and the Dolphins refused to do anything physically. He's
got a little bit of that Johnny Smith ability of like, if you're gonna move the pocket and be that West Coast style and all those types of things, he can make.
Look, when he was on, he was a tremendously talented player. That was just a long time ago, and I think, hoping you're getting that is a pipe dream. He's a lottery ticket. It's not necessarily a bad lottery ticket. They gave up, a conditional 6th-round pick? I don't necessarily think it's a bad move. Would you be surprised if we get to like mid-August and we find out he's not going to make the team?
No, because we don't know what he is. The last one I guess we can sit here and have an example of is Gronk retiring with the Patriots and then coming back with Tampa. But Gronk came back with Tampa with Brady.
Right.
So it's a little bit different in that respect. And then also, Gronk towards the end, and I don't remember exactly, obviously I have a better understanding of Gronk's history than Darren Waller's. But with Gronk, his body after 2018 was unplayable. I mean, his back, his leg, he had that big giant bruise. Remember that
there's a rib injury in there too, right?
His entire body was in shambles. He was done. And obviously he was done playing in New England as well. So there's just a couple of different factors there with Gronk. But he comes back after a year of resetting his body to play with his quarterback, to play with Brady. This is a little bit of a different situation for Darren Waller. But maybe Darren Waller comes back and is the Darren Waller at least for another year. For Gronk, it was like a year or two that he was a factor in Tampa Bay. So maybe Darren Waller can do the same thing. But interesting trade from a Dolphins perspective. From the Steelers' perspective, just quickly, here's a look at the Steelers' starters. I really like what Pittsburgh has done in theory outside of Rodgers. Like if they had anybody else at quarterback that made me feel any better about that situation besides Rodgers, DK Metcalf, Robert Woods, Calvin Austin, but they have Roman Wilson, who I really liked in the draft last year, who got hurt in his rookie training camp. He's coming back from injury, so he's going to be in the mix as well. Their offensive line, I don't know if it's great, but they have Troy Fontenot, who they just drafted, Broderick Jones, who they just drafted. So they have 2 first-round picks, recent first-round picks in 23 and 24 at left and right tackle. You mentioned the tight end room is really good on paper. I mean, Freiermuth and Jonnu Smith and Darnell Washington's a really good combination there at tight end. And then Jalen Warren and Caleb Johnson, sort of their 1-2 punch at running back. And that brings us to the defense, which I wanted to kind of segue into this other part of this discussion. This trade goes down. Ramsey and Jonnu Smith, not all that different than what's going on in Pittsburgh with TJ Watt. TJ Watt wants a new contract. Jalen Ramsey wanted out of Miami. Jonnu Smith wanted a new contract with the Dolphins that he didn't get. So TJ Watt now is sitting there with this Steelers situation. Everything the Steelers have done, trading for Ramsey, trading for DK, signing Rodgers, all this stuff signals that the Steelers want to be all in on 25. So to then go ahead and trade your best defensive player, maybe your best player on your entire team, in TJ Watt, doesn't make a whole lot of sense. But at the same time, it hasn't resolved. The situation hasn't resolved. He still needs a new contract. He still doesn't have a new contract. And should the Patriots be interested if he is available?
I mean, they should. I'll believe it when I see it. I don't think he's going to be available for all the reasons you just said. But if he doesn't have a contract, he doesn't have a contract. If I'm the Steelers, I'm running this out into the regular season. Like, if he can't get on the field till October, fine. I'd be okay with that. But, I mean, not okay with it, but, like, it's better than trading him. But if he is available, yeah, he'd be a great... We talked about with this Patriots defense. Like, we really like the secondary. They've got some intriguing players at linebacker. They've brought in some good complementary pass rushers, compared to, like, the wide receiver room, right? Guys that are good capitalizing off the opportunities created by a leader. But they don't have that lead pass rusher, just like they don't have that number 1 wide receiver. They don't have their Matthew Judon. You plug TJ Watt into this, and now K'Lavon Chaison's going to have a bunch of one-on-ones like he did opposite Max Crosby last year. Harold Landry's going to have a bunch of one-on-ones. You're going to get to let some of these younger guys pin their ears back. Braden Swinson, right? It completely changes the dynamic. Completely changes the dynamic of the defense that we already think might be pretty good. So, whether it's him, I know we'll get to Trey Hendrickson. I think... Trey Hendrickson, I could see leaving. I think Trey Hendrickson's more realistic than TJ Watt. I don't think either of them leave, but if I had to pick one that I think will become available, I think it's Hendrickson. Either one of those guys, though, like that would be the move. The Patriots should be in on that.
It's very similar in a lot of ways to how we look at their wide receiver room with the Patriots. You have some guys that can make some plays, but do you have that alpha number one
Right.
guy that's going to draw the attention, that's going to draw the Tuesday matchup, that's going to be that type of player. And in the pass rush, they might have that in the interior. Like Christian Barmore and Milton Williams might be Tuesday players.
Yeah.
So if both those guys hit, if Christian Barmore gets back to the way he was pre-blood clots, and Milton Williams is as good as his potential and his flashes in Philadelphia showed that he was, then that is a Tuesday player type of building block right there, where teams are going to have to worry about on the interior, how are we going to block these two guys? And maybe that's enough to tilt the scales where the outside doesn't have as many resources for double teams or chips or slides, sliding protections and things, all that fancy stuff.
They got to play at a really, really high level to make that reality.
So TJ Watt would be the finishing piece, no doubt about it. He'd be the icing on the cake there to kind of really round out this line. And I think he's a great fit for the style that Vrabel wants to play, just this upfield, more of a splash play player at his peak than he is, somebody that's just going to like consistently, hold the edge and press the pocket and that kind of thing. That's maybe the one reason, and I want to get to Hendrickson separately, but like it might be the one reason why I favor Watt a little bit more over Hendrickson, because Hendrickson to me is a really sturdy, consistent player. Really good player. But he's not necessarily this like flashy up the field player. He's more of like a push the pocket, finish sacks, finish rushes, good two-way player, really solid, but not necessarily a big time playmaker behind the line of scrimmage. Like Watt forces fumbles, he makes plays against the run, he pressures the quarterback, obviously, much more splashier player in my mind. But I don't know if he'll be available. Now, the one thing that I wanted to throw out there, because fake trade machine here for a second.
Sure.
What is the compensation realistically for TJ Watt?
Didn't some Pittsburgh radio guy in like April report it was going to be a second-round pick?
So
I might be imagining that. Hang on.
Second or third round pick feels about right. As a
Third-round pick, yeah, done.
He's 30 years old and he needs a new contract. And those two factors, even though he's a great, great player, those two factors always matter in the league. They always matter. When you have a guy that's aging and a guy that wants a big money contract, those two things are going to coincide to hurt the compensation. The deal, and this goes for Hendrickson as well, Max Crosby just signed a 3-year deal worth $106 million.
Yeah.
$62.5 million guaranteed. It's right around $35 million a year. Now, Max Crosby's 27, TJ Watt's 30, so there's a difference in age there. But I think at the bare minimum for TJ Watt, you're talking about $25 million a year, and maybe even pushing 30. So that's probably what he's looking for, I would say.
So here's where I'm at with that.
Like my point is that whoever trades for him is going to need to give him a contract too.
Sure.
Otherwise, you're going to be in the same position as the Pittsburgh Steelers.
No, you're obviously. I'm not trading for him to like as a 1-year rental. Like if you're giving up that much, you're giving him a contract. Let's put that in there. Over the cap, it has the Patriots with $60.6 million in cap space.
That's not an issue. It's not a cap space issue.
Nobody else has more than 45. Is this real? They're in the red next year? How's that possible?
No, that's not
All
right.
right. Anyway, the point being, this is the whole thing about the rookie contract for the quarterback. This is what you do. Like I wouldn't want Watt on the books past when you're going to be extending Drake May. But I don't think that's going to be an issue, right? So you have this year will be year 2, next year will be year 3, year 4. Even if you want to play with the 5th-year option, it probably wouldn't be a lot of guaranteed money. You could probably even stretch it to 4 years if you really want to. As long as he's off the books or maybe you take 1 year back to make wiggle room for the Christian Gonzalez extension. But if you have him off the books by the time you have to pay Gonzalez, you have to pay May, you don't have any big contracts on the books, right? Who are they paying? Who is their pending free agent this offseason that's going to get a big fat contract? I think, correct me if I'm wrong, I think their biggest pending free agent is Marcus Jones.
Sounds right.
Which I like Marcus Jones, and he's a good player. He's not realistically a guy that's breaking the bank.
So Milton Williams is definitely their biggest contract.
But he's on the books now.
Yes.
He's accounted for, right? So
You're saying guys they're adding. Gotcha. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
So it's not something that like if you have the flexibility to pay him, you have the wiggle room to pay him and get him on the books for a little bit, even if you have to overpay, because you have the flexibility of the rookie quarterback contract. Use that to bolster the rest of the roster to make it easier on Drake May, so that when it is time for him to be the guy, he already knows what it looks like to win. Depending on the season, Kayvon Chason has, Marcus Jones is their biggest pending free agent.
Can I throw another crazy trade idea at you?
Yeah, just real quick. Austin Hooper, Cole Strange, Marcus Jones, Kayvon Chason, Jalen Hawkins. Those are really their only starters, guys that we think are going to be starters that are going to be free agents next year. Unrestricted. They have a couple RFAs.
So TJ Watt, and I think you can throw Trey Hendrickson. Similar idea, similar concept with both those players. And
this all applies to both of them.
This is purely speculative. If the Steelers called you and said, we are gauging the market for TJ Watt.
Yeah.
We want a 3rd-round pick in Keon White.
Oh.
Because to me, this is happening more and more. We just saw Ramsey and Fitzpatrick get traded for, player for player. Ramsey and Jonnu for Fitzpatrick. It's happening a little bit more in the league now that players are getting involved in some of these trades. They're not just straight up picks. The Steelers clearly want to win now. They're clearly in a win now mode. You send them Keon White, who can be a starter for them on their defensive line. And the Patriots get a guy that's a little bit more proven and has a little bit more splash to his name and to his game, I would say, than Keon White. And really more of a pure 4-3 rush linebacker, like not necessarily the tweener that Keon White is as well. Would you do it if you're the Patriots?
As much as, that's a good one. I want to see Keon White in this defense. I think this defense is a great fit for him. I think it's going to unlock a lot. I think he's going to be awesome. But as somebody who has such an affinity for the mystery box or the boat take, don't I kind of have to take Watt or Hendrickson? Like, Keon White could be anything. He could even be...
Yeah. He's 26, so he's obviously much younger than those guys.
But, was it a 3rd-round pick in one of those guys?
Yeah. Let's call it a 3rd-round pick in Keon White for Watt or Hendrickson.
I think I'm take cornered. I think I have to do it because it's the mystery box or the boat.
It's fun because you can see it from both sides. And like I said, these trades are becoming a little bit more popular now, where the Steelers or the Bengals are trading the best player in the trade. There's no doubt about that. But they're at least getting somebody back that's a starting caliber player. So they're not completely devoid of talent at that position now. So it helps out both sides by doing something like that. I really love the idea. You're right. It's the mystery box versus boat. I love the idea of Keon White. He's much more affordable. He's much younger. Those things are obviously factors in all of this. But for a team like the Patriots, it does feel a little bit premature to trade for Watt or Hendrickson because you're not truly in the window yet. You're right outside the window, like the window. You're cracking the window open.
Yeah, but you're not truly in the window. I don't mind getting a lot closer to the window. I think that's going to be good for Drake May's development. I think it's going to be good for Mike Vrabel. They win more games with an established pass rusher on the roster. We are not in tank territory anymore. We should not be worrying about the draft pick. I posted the other day. I posted the other day. EA Sports put out the rankings for the college football, the overall ratings for the players for this year's game, which drops on Monday. And I posted the wide receiver rankings because my guy Jordan Tyson is 3rd behind Ryan Williams and Jeremiah Smith. And Savage, friend of the program, replied, I'm waiting for the 2027 draft. And, don't get me wrong, those guys are great. But here's the thing. If they're picking high enough that they can draft Ryan Williams or Jeremiah Smith, there are much, much, much bigger problems at hand, and they probably shouldn't be drafting a wide receiver to begin with. So, unless they make some crazy trade. So, we need to be done with the draft stuff. We need to be done with is the window open or is it not? I know they're not going to this one trade won't make them contenders for a Super Bowl. They need to be focused on winning as many football games as possible. That's what matters now. Building that winning culture, building that winning environment, having some of these young players, Drake May, Christian Gonzalez, Will Campbell, understand what it takes to win in this league and win regularly in this league and win against high-level opponents in this league. And a player like TJ Watt or a player like Trey Hendrickson is going to help you do that. And that needs to be the priority right now.
I would do it. That's why I threw it out there. I didn't throw it out there to say I wouldn't do it. That would be silly. I
do that all the time. You can absolutely do that.
No, I would do that trade. I would make that trade.
I would. It wouldn't be easy. It wouldn't be easy.
It wouldn't be. It is nothing. It has absolutely nothing to do with Keon White, who I think is going to be a good player. I just look at it from the Patriots' perspective, kind of like what you're saying. I feel as though that expedites things a little bit, and it also, in a lot of ways, takes some pressure off of Drake May, because there's a lot riding right now, in my opinion, as we look ahead to training camp and all that kind of stuff. We talk a lot about in the offseason their draft and their free agent additions, and rightfully so, but at this point of the season, at this point of the offseason, the dust has kind of settled on all of that. And now you just realize if Drake May is not the guy, then they're porked kind of anyways.
Right.
And then we're going back into the carousel in 4 or 5 years. A great way to support your young quarterback is obviously to stack the roster with as much talent around him as possible.
On both sides of the ball.
On both sides of the ball.
A good defense helps a young quarterback.
TJ Watt or Trey Hendrickson puts their defense into good to potentially great territory.
I think, health and all that, right? You add one of those guys, and I think we can legitimately talk about them being a top 5 defense. I think now top 10's realistic.
Hendrickson,
top 5's a bit
Williams,
much. You add a guy
Barmore,
like that,
Landry as your front four with Davis and Gonzo and the 2 safeties in the back end.
I mean, that's just studs. It's just studs everywhere.
It's great. It's a great roster.
You're talking about a top 5 defense. When's the last time a team with the top 5 defense didn't make the playoffs?
That's a good question. Ask ChatGPT. They'll tell you. The other trade candidate I wanted to get to before we move on here is Terry McLaurin in Washington. Out of all of the players that we've talked about, I would probably rank McLaurin as the least likely to get traded out of these 3 guys, Watt, Hendrickson, McLaurin. I'd probably go from order of least likely to most likely, McLaurin, Watt, Hendrickson. I think Hendrickson has the most likely odds of getting traded because it's Cincinnati and the Bengals have paid everybody so far. They paid T. Higgins, they paid Jamar Chase, they paid Burrow. I don't know how much more money is going to be printed in Cincinnati at this point to give to Trey Hendrickson. So McLaurin, I think, is a long shot to get dealt. But he does want a contract. He has been holding out throughout the spring. We'll see if he continues to hold out in training camp, but he wants a new deal. If I'm Washington, I'm doing it. I'm figuring it out. The last thing that you want to do to Jaden Daniels is take away his best receiver in his second season.
It would be beyond moronic of the – you kind of have to give him what he wants. It goes back to what I said about the rookie contract. This is the benefit that just bugged me out. The Sports Hub show, the Terry McLaurin stuff too.
And Paul Perillo is on the Sports Hub talking about the exact same thing.
You have the quarterback on a rookie deal. I'm not saying give Terry McLaurin like a 5-year. Oh yeah, what's that lower third say? Should the Patriots consider trying to trade for TJ Watt or Terry McLaurin?
It's literally the exact same conversation.
Synergy.
We should have done a crossover.
We should have. But again, you're the Commanders. You have the financial flexibility. The quarterback on a rookie contract. They would be idiots to not give him what he wants. And you add more money for shorter term if you're worried about the term, but you have to pay him. All right, you want to know who the last top 5 defense was to not make the playoffs?
Yes.
It's kind of a no-duh thing. What team in the NFL would manage to have a top 5 defense and still not make the playoffs?
Top 5 defense and still not make the playoffs?
I'll give you a hint. They were 7-4 and then lost their last 6 games. What team does that sound like?
I don't even know.
Patriots division.
The Jets?
Yeah.
Jets.
The 2022 Jets. But, that's an asterisk because that's the Jets, and they could screw anything up. So I'm back to 2021. I still haven't found anybody yet. Top 2 defenses in football in 2021, Patriots and Bills.
So pulling up on the Terry McLaurin front, as much as I don't want to...
The Broncos did in 2021. So it's been a few years. But, you have a top 5 defense, you're probably going to make the playoffs.
I want to belabor this one because I really don't think McLaurin's going to get dealt. But
no.
DK Metcalf went for a second-round pick from Seattle to Pittsburgh this offseason. Second-round draft pick. I know you're a huge DK guy. I believe McLaurin's a better player than DK. But that would seem to be the floor.
He is definitely a better fit for
McDaniel's
offense, yeah.
That would be the floor, in my mind, for McLaurin at the bare minimum would be a second-round pick. And it might take more. It might be even more than that. But to go back to my...
I think he's worth the same as Metcalf. I would do the Metcalf deal for McLaurin.
So I think he's a little bit better a player. But if
it's also later in the process. Players aren't worth as much.
He's 29, and Metcalf's a little bit younger.
Yeah.
That might be the only difference. McLaurin's a better player, better route runner, a more well-rounded player. DK's an awesome field stretcher, but that's what he is. He's a one-trick pony, deep threat, really, really good at it. It's 102 mile an hour up in the zone, right? Like, it's a great fastball, but that's what he's good at. McLaurin, just awesome player, just great route runner, great at the catch point, tough as nails, competitive, just great football player.
I've always said this, not to revisit the 2019 draft, but like, as much as people bemoan that, and they could have had A.J. Brown, they could have had DK Metcalf, they were never drafting. Deebo Samuel, they were never drafting those guys. Those guys, and look, you can argue, given their track record, maybe they should have done things differently than what their traditional philosophy was. But what their philosophy was at the time, A.J. Brown, DK Metcalf, Deebo Samuel didn't fit the philosophy, didn't fit the mold of the kind of receivers they drafted. You know who did? Terry McLaurin.
He was a great gunner in college.
Right. He played all 4 downs. I think he was a multi-year team captain, if I remember correctly, at Ohio State. That was the only thing that didn't fit the mold, is they didn't draft Ohio State guys. But
that's probably why I didn't draft them.
I've always said this, like, if we're going to just look at it objectively, the real miss in 2019 is Terry McLaurin, because he checked so many of their boxes. The other guys went on to be great, and it would have been great if they drafted them, but it would have been so out of character. They could have drafted Terry McLaurin, gotten obviously better player than N'Keal Harry, but that also, he was, what was he, 4th-round pick?
3rd-round pick.
It wouldn't have been out of character for them to draft a guy like that.
He was a 3rd-round pick.
Just kind of a side take. He's always been the big miss to me from 2019.
He was a 3rd-round pick, and he was a unreal elite gunner.
Yep.
In college, he didn't catch the ball a ton at Ohio State. It's obviously always I keep saying obviously today. It was a crowded room. Of course, it always is at Ohio State, but he didn't have a ton of college production. But I remember the little bit of film that he did have in college was really good. And then on top of that, you could watch his gunner tape and watch how he got off the line of scrimmage and how he built speed covering punts and see how that was going to translate to press coverage in the NFL. And you could just tell that this guy was going to be able to get off press and be really good at all that type of stuff. So Terry McLaurin, 29 years old, needs a new contract, wants a new contract. This one's easier to swallow, I would say, than dealing Keion White. But there's a trade that's similar. If you're the Patriots, you trade a 2nd-round pick in Kayshon Boutte for Terry McLaurin.
I would do that.
Maybe they would ask for Bourne instead. That's up to them.
I would do that.
But I think those ones are much easier to stomach than Keion White.
Well, I mean, again, it's the Brandon Ayuk trade was a 2nd, a future 4th, and Kendrick Bourne. And you want to make that Kayshon Boutte instead? Like, I think that's... And I'm not, like, willingly parting ways with either of those guys. Everybody knows how big of a Kendrick Bourne fan I am. But for Terry McLaurin, I would do that.
I wonder if they would... Which way Washington would go. Kendrick Bourne, more veteran player. They're in a win-now situation with the Commanders. But Kayshon Boutte's got a little bit more upside. He can run the vertical routes that Jaden Daniels is really good at throwing. So I actually would say that Kayshon Boutte's probably a better fit for the style of offense. It also helps that it's the LSU offense and they played at LSU.
Right.
So there's a lot of things that to me would say Kayshon Boutte's probably a better fit for Washington than Kendrick Bourne. I just don't know if they would go with unproven versus maybe a little bit more proven and in which route they'd want to go there. But the Ayuk trade, a 2nd, a future 4th, and one of those 2 receivers, Bourne or Boutte for McLaurin. I'm in. I'd do that if I was the Patriots.
Yeah.
So that's your trade candidates. I want to really quickly, before we open it up to you guys, I did write down some free agents. It's not, no one that's available in free agency right now is going to change much. Let me put that out there. But I just wanted to list off 10 names. And if any of these names catch your eye, these were the looking at positions of need for the Patriots and who's available. These are kind of the top guys that I came up with. Rasul Douglas, Javion Clowney, Eric Kendricks, Brandon Sheriff, Kazir White, Justin Simmons, Stephon Gilmore, Matt Judon, Carl Lawson, Will Hernandez, guard. Any of those names would you be interested in the Patriots bringing in?
Shoot, run through that again. That's quick.
Rasul Douglas.
Yeah.
Jadeveon Clowney.
Yeah.
Eric Kendricks. Brandon Sheriff. Kazir White. Justin Simmons, who I like, free safety. Stephon Gilmore. Judon. Will Hernandez.
I mean, I've liked Simmons too. But this is the second year in a row he's been available this late in the process, right?
It's weird. It's like maybe he just doesn't want to do training camp. I don't know. But it's weird.
He's kind of older. He's dealt with injury. He wasn't very good last year, was he?
Not great. No.
Who was the one guard you mentioned in there? Brandon Sheriff, I wouldn't hate. I'm always down to bring back Stephon Gilmore. I don't really know what he does for them at this point, honestly. You're not going to play him inside. It's kind of like we talked about Jair Alexander last week. You're not going to play Gilmore inside. You're not going to play Gonzalez inside. You're not going to play Carlton Davis inside. I don't know that Gilmore's coming for a depth role. I just want him and Christian Gonzalez in the same room, just so Gonzalez can learn from him. So I'm not opposed to that. I just don't ultimately know what that looks like or what the incentive is for Gilmore to come here. Yeah, nothing really stands out to me on that list.
So the one guy that does stand out to me a little bit is Sheriff. Now, he's a career right guard. He's played on the right side his entire career. He has definitely started to tail off. He's older. He's an older player. He's 33 going on 34. But at the same time, in the interior equivalent of Morgan Moses, it feels a little bit like that. He's a very, very good player for a long period of time, who is a veteran, consummate pro type of player, really well, really highly regarded. At his peak, he was one of the best guards in football. He's not that anymore. If the Patriots get into a position 2 weeks into training camp, and we're sitting out here and we're still talking about left guard being this hole that they don't really have a great fit for, if they get Brandon Sheriff on board to switch from right to left and play left guard for a year and do the whole stopgap bridge thing with Brandon Sheriff for a year, I'd be in on that. I don't think it's something that they would do immediately in training camp. I think this is a Zeke Elliott situation where they get to that joint practices in Minnesota, realize that left guard is really a problem, and they go and make a move. That type of thing. I would be a little bit wary of the position switch. He'd have to be on board with it. But if he wants to play, it's a starting position that's available to him to play at, and the Patriots can compensate him. So that's the one player that stood out to me on that list. But that's it. That's pretty much what's available right now. Other than the trades, which I think are a little bit pie in the sky for just in general, I don't know if any of those guys are getting moved. It's not exactly like you're going to make a huge impact change to your roster on July 2nd, which isn't totally surprising, but at the same time, or Ramsey and Fitzpatrick and Jonnu, like that was a trade. That was a legitimate trade that changed some things for those two teams. So if you want to weigh in on that, you can go right ahead and tell us what you like, what you don't like from our spiel about what's available out there on the market. 855-PATS500 is the phone number. I see the emails coming in. We got those as well at podcast@patriots.com. But we got some reads to do before we get rolling here with your calls and emails. Attention teams, stock up on everything you need to host a winning weekend together this 4th of July at Bob's Discount Furniture. Join Bob's for the 4th celebration and shop must-haves for every room, like featured pack sectionals, perfect for hosting, party-ready dining sets, and Consumer Reports recommended mattresses at unbelievable values. Cue the fireworks. So stop in and get holiday weekend ready at Bob's Discount Furniture, the official furniture store of the New England Patriots. We're going to be together on the 4th this year, Barth.
Yep.
That's correct. It's becoming an annual tradition.
Yep.
A 4th in Nantasket, which will be fun. And then also, our friends at Brunt want to tell you right here in New England, Brunt Workwear makes work boots and apparel that are built for the job site. Their gear is comfortable, durable, and named after the real workers in the trades that help design it. You can even try Brunt out on the job, and if it doesn't blow you away, they let you send it back. Save $10 on your first order at bruntworkwear.com/Pats or with coupon code PATS. All right, ready for the phones? Let's do it. Let's get to the phones. Nate is in Connecticut. What's up, Nate?
Hey, can you guys hear me well?
We got you. Hey. What's up?
Not much. So first off, I just want to say, Evan, congrats on getting married.
Thank you, sir.
Big time. And you said you're having your honeymoon at Martha's Vineyard. It's a great place. Never been, but I've seen a lot of cool pictures. Nice. But what I want to get to is my question for you guys is, have you noticed anything about Ramondre Stevenson? Reports are that he has lost a tremendous amount of weight and is looking a lot more slimmer. I don't know if he's trying to fit like a scheme like Daniels on, or if it's just his personal opinion. Thank you, guys.
Thanks, Nate. Thanks for the call, and I appreciate the the positives about the wedding. Yes, the Ramondre. I always have a tough time with guys. Do they look like they're skinnier because they're not in pads at this time of year?
Right.
So it can make a difference. About
I don't know about like tremendous amount of weight is not.
I wouldn't say tremendous.
Yeah.
He looked good in the spring. No, he looks svelte. He
moving
looked
well.
like he was in. I would say he looked like he was in shape. I don't know if that means that he lost all this weight, but he looked like he was in shape.
Well, he's been pretty much constantly hurt the last 2 years. It just might be that he's fully healthy. It could be as simple as that. Like he's been dealing with ankles and knees and things like that. You know my spiel on this. They ran him into the ground the last 2 years. They ran him into the ground and it took its toll. Sounded like he kind of really refreshed this offseason. We know he's going to come in. We think he's going to come in, I should say, with the lighter workload this year with Josh McDaniels. I wonder if he's just moving better. And, like, he definitely lost a little bit of weight. I shouldn't say it's not that, but I wonder if he's moving better. I wonder if he's just healthy. And we haven't seen him look like this in a couple of years because he hasn't been healthy. He really hasn't been healthy since training camp 2023. It's probably the last time he was healthy.
He looked like he was in shape. I don't. We'll see what it looks like with the pads. I'm also not the greatest eye test guy when it comes to is this guy overweight, underweight. I don't know. I don't try to read scales. I have no clue. But
right.
It looked to me like he was in shape. He looked spry. He looked fresh, like you said, which he should this time of year. But just an aside related to this, and I know I shouldn't do this and I shouldn't care, but there's nothing else to do. So I was scrolling, as you do on social media, and PFF put out their top running back rooms, 1 through 32. Any guess where the Patriots were?
They had them, like, annoyingly low, didn't they?
Yeah, they did.
You need to stop encouraging these people.
So, here, I think I can pull it up real quick. So,
What are they, I'm like 25, 26?
Oh, this is just running backs. I'll pull it up in a second, but I believe that they were 20-something, like 23, 24, something like that.
That's ridiculous.
So here it is. Baltimore's number 1. Derrick
Sure,
Henry.
I mean, yes.
Philly's number 2.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
Like, I don't know the Patriots need to be top 10, but they shouldn't be bottom 10.
So they
just don't know about Land Larison yet. That's the thing.
So I want to say, I can't find the exact list, of course, now. I want to say, unit rankings. Here it is. Okay, I'm sorry. This is terrible radio. But Baltimore number 1, with Derrick Henry. Detroit number 2 with Gibbs and Montgomery. They have the Falcons at number 3 with Bijan and Tyler Algier.
Tyler Algier slept on. I don't know that I'd put them ahead of Philly. I think Barkley alone clears, but Tyler Algier is a slept-on player. I don't hate that take.
Philly at 4.
Yeah.
With Barkley. Seattle at 5. That was your top 5.
Okay.
The Patriots on this list were 22nd.
Who are they behind? Who are they? This is...
Like, who's below them, you mean?
No, who's ahead? Who's, like, just ahead of them?
New Orleans, Tennessee.
With who? With who?
New Orleans, Alvin Kamara, Kendre Miller, Clyde Edwards-Helaire,
that's not a bad
Devin
row.
Neal. They drafted Devin Neal.
Yeah.
Tennessee with Pollard and Tajay Spears. Houston with Mixon. They signed Nick Chubb this offseason.
Okay.
Dameon Pierce, Woody Marks, draft pick. Dolphins, who we talked about earlier, Achane and Jalen Wright. The Jets, Breece Hall, Braylon Allen. It's a good combo. Colts, Jonathan Taylor, Khalil Herbert. Giddens in the 5th round.
All right.
Chargers, who drafted Hampton, signed Najee Harris.
Yeah.
I don't know.
There's a lot of good running back rooms in the league. Maybe I was too harsh there.
20 seconds seems low.
It seems low, but like I don't know that I'd put them behind any of those groups.
So,
or ahead of any of those groups.
In some respects, I get it. Ramondre's coming off a down year. The fumbling was a problem. We know that. I am cautiously optimistic that they're going to fix the fumbling problem. Combination of better blocking and Vrabel. Vrabel and McDaniels, I think, are going to have a really heavy influence on helping him with that. So I'm cautiously optimistic about the fumbling. And I understand that Travion Henderson's an unknown. He's a rookie. He's not proven. We don't know yet what he's going to be in the league. That's fair. But in theory, because I believe Ramondre is going to bounce back. I think he's going to clean the fumbles up. I think he's going to have a better year. I don't know if it will be 2022 where he had 1,400 yards, but I think he's going to have, or is that 23, whichever year that was. I think he's going to have a better year. And I'm really bullish on Travion Henderson. And I think most people are. I think he's going to be a really good pro in a role. I don't know if he's going to be a workhorse. I don't know if he's going to be a lead back, but used correctly, which I have faith that McDaniels will use him correctly, Travion Henderson's going to be an impact player in the league. So that's a pretty darn good tandem. If you are expecting a better version of Ramondre Stevenson, And then everybody did, all the national media, everybody loves Travion Henderson. Now all of a sudden they're 22nd in the league. It's low. It feels low.
It does feel low.
So I would have had them a little bit higher. I'm not saying that they should have been top 5 or anything like that, but Washington, for example, is 14 with Brian Robinson and Austin Eckler. Is Washington's running back room really that much better than the Patriots, or does Washington just have Jaden Daniels, who just makes their running game that much better? It's one of those things to me. Vegas is 13, it's just off of Ash and Genty.
If Vegas is going to be 13 just off of Ash and Genty, then the Patriots should be higher.
They have Genty and they have Raheem Mostert. That's their 1-2 right now.
See that? I'd almost put the Patriots ahead of that because the Patriots unknown is the second guy. The Raiders unknown. As much as I like Genty, he's an unknown. He's a rookie. He's the first guy.
Yeah.
That's too high. And I'm a Genty guy.
Little low, PFF. Little low. All right. DC is in New Hampshire. What's up, DC?
Hey, guys. I got 2 quick points to throw at you. This first one, total July off-season point. And that is Puntas Arenas, Chile, which is at the bottom tip of Chile, right above Antarctica. Their winters during our summer. Right now it's like 30 degrees, snowing, raining, windy. The multi-billion-dollar Patriots organization should be renting a soccer field, throwing up some uprights, and flying our kickers down for a week during mini camp.
Love it.
No need to freeze the indoor facility or kick in freezers. It's a beautiful city. That's what I think. So my actual point is I wanted to make a quick Drake May, Josh Allen comp, which is very original, I know, but more so in their career trajectory. So I think their rookie years were actually kind of similar. The big trade, but some things to clean up. And Allen did that in his second year, but it wasn't really till year 3 that he really made his stamp on the league. So I think there's a lot of local media hype for a year 2 leap, whatever that means from Drake May. And I think some silly people who I won't name names will freak out if he does anything less than 4,000 yards, 35 touchdowns. But I think if Drake May actually does hit his ceiling, I think all of us think he is capable of doing, his trajectory, I think, is much more likely to be Josh Allen than a Burrow Lamar thing. And so Josh Allen year 2 is 3,000 yards, 20 TDs. Looked really good in the second half of that year, and I think if you see that from Drake May next year, you're thrilled. And I would love to. I think that's more realistic, and I'd be pumped for that. But congrats, Evan, on getting married. Best of luck. Thank you, guys.
Thanks, DC. Appreciate it. So Josh Allen year 2, which I know you love this comp, Alex.
By the way, real quick, 40 degrees and raining in
it's a great suggestion.
Punta Arenas.
It's a great suggestion. Maybe they should fly him out there the beginning of training camp because, you can do without the kickers for a couple days in training camp. You let them go down there.
But then how are we going to get to count? Or do I get to go down?
Yeah, we can send you down there on the charter. So Josh Allen in year 2, just to play out the exercise, 3,089 yards, right over 3,000 yards passing, 20 touchdowns, 9 picks. He had a little bit over 500 yards rushing. I think that's important to put in there as well. So basically 3,500 yards of offense. And so he did have 9 rushing touchdowns. So he had 29 total touchdowns if you add the rushing touchdowns to the passing touchdowns. So pretty good numbers. Now, he was under 60% completion still. He was at 58.8. In my mind, I believe Drake May is ahead of this already. These numbers are more, in my opinion, I think Drake May is ahead of this pace. Now, I'm not saying he's going to be an MVP. I'm just saying that if you're comparing it to year 1, year 2 Josh Allen, I would say that Drake May is already ahead of 3,000 yards and 20 touchdown passes. Now, how far, I don't know. The big thing with Allen in year 2 is that the Bills went 10-6 and made the playoffs. They were a much better team with him in the second season compared to the first season. He was 5-6 as a starter in his first season with the Bills, started 11 games, and then he was 10-6 and started the full season, and they made the playoffs. So would you be good with that stat line? 3,000 yards, 20 touchdowns, 9 picks, 500 yards on the ground.
As long as there's not too many fumbles to go with those picks, yeah, that'd be great.
The fumbles is an interesting one.
I've said that. Just keep it under a turnover a game.
Fumbles. I don't remember Josh Allen ever really having issues with fumbles. I'll get to it here in a second.
I can find it.
So he did actually. He fumbled the ball. Wow, if this is right, he fumbled the ball 14 times his second season.
So I'm guessing that's fumbles and not fumbles lost.
Correct. It's just total fumbles. 14.
So 14 plus 9, that's a little high.
No, not all of them were lost, but yeah.
I know, but so 14
high freaking
fumbles
number,
plus
jeez.
9, that's 23 times he put the balls in harm's way versus 20 touchdowns. I guess we got to give him rushing to 29. So it's 29 total touchdowns, 23 times putting the ball in harm's way. I wouldn't love
That's a
it.
lot.
It'd be better. Yeah, fumble. That's a lot of fumbles.
That's a ton of fumbles. I didn't realize he had.
He's always had a fumble problem. You just have your blinders on.
No, I knew he had a pick problem. I didn't know
he always had a
fumbles.
fumble problem too.
Apparently.
Well,
14.
some of us watch him objectively and knew that.
I just, ooh, nah. Now, the other big thing about Josh Allen in year 2, I should mention, that I think is important in this Drake May conversation. He had 4 fourth-quarter comebacks and 5 game-winning drives.
Yeah, so
he was a little bit more. He was clutch.
They got to win more games. Yeah.
Yeah, he won more games for him late. All right, let's get back to the phones. Randy is in Providence. What's up, Randy? Randy.
Hey, hello. Hi, guys. Sorry, it was beeping in my ear there. So congratulations on getting married, Evan.
Thank you.
Join the parade of congratulations. I called. I wanted to talk about the Miami-Pittsburgh trade for a minute there because I think it's like a strange trade where both teams kind of lose a little bit.
Agree.
I think Miami is on. I've been saying for a couple months now. I think they're on the verge of like a complete meltdown. I think next season they're going to have a new coach, new GM. We're going to be hearing a lot of stories about the locker room issues and stuff like that. Because like the story I heard coming out of Miami was that Ramsey and Hill were at odds. Ramsey felt like Hill was treated a little too softly, and that's kind of what caused the fallout there. But I mean, if you look across the roster, they've lost 2 of their other impactful team captains in Armstead retiring and Calais Campbell returning to Arizona. But that and Jonnu Smith being part of that trade, he was at 19.5% target share in Miami last year. They don't really have anybody to replace that. I mean, Darren Waller coming in is great, but his peak was like 5 years ago. But I think more importantly, on the other side, I guess, with Pittsburgh, is that it's just the Pittsburgh team is becoming like a weird fit team, right? It's like a bunch of big names and stuff, but how do they fit together? Because like DK Metcalf has always been kind of a go ball guy, right? A deep route guy. Last year, 21st in the league with 13.1 ADOT. Meanwhile, Rodgers on the other side of that hasn't had average air yards per throw over 8 since 2019. So I mean that's a contrast there just alone. But then he's also not really well known for throwing to the tight ends a lot. And so with Freiermuth there, who 17% of the targets there in Pittsburgh last year, and Johnny Smith coming in, it's like the top 3 weapons there that Rodgers' game just doesn't meld well with. But I have one question, Patriots related for you guys as we're coming off this. I've heard a lot of people with a lot of like, I would think overly positive projections around Travion Henderson and kind of his workload, almost to the point of like, can he be a feature back type of guy? And I'm just wondering what in his history people are looking at, because I'm looking at his college production. And once they brought in Quinshon Judkins, and he didn't have to be that feature back. He's a perfect running back by committee guy. He's great for that. But you look at 2023, he was getting 15.5 attempts per game. His yards per attempt was 5.9. 2024, when his attempts went down to just 9 a game, his yards per attempt went up to 7.1. We saw him get a little bit more involved in the receiving game, and more importantly, stop missing games. He was injured a lot when he was carrying a lot of that load. So I'm just wondering, is it just like kind of rose-colored glasses for people looking at a second-round draft pick, hoping for, kind of like a steal and a feature back out of it? Or is there anything specifically in Travion Henderson's history that you guys look back and say, yeah, I think he could carry that load? Because to me, I see him as more of like a comp to like a Devon A-Chain out of Miami, who 10, 12 times a game he touches the ball, but there are games he goes for like 150 yards, and it's like, wow, so I'd like to hear you guys' thoughts on that.
Yeah, it's a
great call.
It's a great call, Randy, and it's a good comp. A-Chain's not a bad comp.
Yeah.
I agree with him. I don't necessarily get caught up with Travion Henderson in terms of volume or counting stats. I don't know how many touches he's going to have. I don't know how many accumulated yards, even if you want to call it scrimmage yards, combined rushing and receiving, he's truly going to have. What I'm more interested with Travion Henderson are two stats: yards per touch, like how many yards is he making every time he touched the ball, and explosive plays. Those are the two things I'm looking at for Travion Henderson. He might not touch the ball 200 times. Maybe it's only 100, 150, 175. But if he's averaging 8, 9, 10 yards per touch, then I'm going to be really happy about the season that he's having. And I think that that's sort of the thing that people are hoping for, is that he's going to be a high impact, low volume or medium volume player in terms of touches, but a high impact player every time he touches the ball.
Right, yeah, he's not a workhorse. He's
No.
not, and McDaniels doesn't use a workhorse. He's going to be the change of pace back, and it's a good role for him. It goes back to our point about Stevenson needing to kind of be the guy that they lean on a little bit more, not as much as they have in the past, but a little bit more. There's some fantasy lingo there in that question. I've been asked this before, like, all right, Travion Henderson, where should he be going in fantasy? Where should Stevenson going? Josh McDaniels is back. Patriots players are now untouchable in fantasy football the way they were for years and years and years.
Very true.
Because every game is going to look a little different. There's not necessarily going to be, unless you're in PPR with that slot receiver, and we don't even know necessarily who that slot receiver is going to be. It's probably going to be Pop Douglas, but it could be Stephon Diggs. It's just, there's going to be a lot of variance there.
Yeah, I don't know if we have a ton of calls or emails that think Travion Henderson's going to touch the ball 300 times. I don't think that's what the expectation is. I do like the A-Chain comp. I hadn't really thought of that one because I think Travion Henderson...
He's not quite that fast.
No, and I think Travion Henderson has a little bit more to offer as a true ball carrier. H-N's a true space player. He's truly a guy that's getting out on the edges or getting the ball in space as a receiver. I think Travion Henderson has a little bit more of a chance to run the ball between the tackles, but it's not a bad comparison. I hadn't really thought of that one. Ryan is in Virginia. What's up, Ryan?
Hey, can you guys hear me?
Yes. Go for it.
I had a fun off-season topic for you guys. One of my favorite aspects of sports is when coaches think outside the box. And Belichick was really great at that. For example, having Schooler having a running start for blocked field goals, or doing the whole eligible and ineligible receivers against the Ravens. And so I had an idea for an outside-the-box method for field goal blocking that is going to sound like a joke, but I would actually ask that you guys honestly take it seriously and tell me why it wouldn't work. So I got this from an article a little while ago, back when Taco Fall was on the Celtics. But
I know where this is going.
The idea was, why not take someone of Taco Fall's stature, so this huge, 7-foot tall
dude,
same guy, line him up over the center on field goal blocking units, and just have him put his hands up to block every field goal. I think
Ryan, we've had somebody that's been listening to Alex and I for years.
Yeah, going back to CLNS.
Are you the same person that has been listening to us for years that has come up with this concept?
Well, no, actually, no. To be fair, that
the
guy.
Other person that I know.
No, that guy wanted to do it on defense.
Yeah,
to knock passes down.
The defensive center. Ryan, I'm sorry, I'm not teasing.
Yeah,
you.
we're not picking. The reason it wouldn't work. Maybe on really long kicks, if you want a roster guy just to block 50-yard kicks, the trajectory on that ball, it gets up really, really quickly. And it might be a factor in the 50-plus range. Most kicks inside of 40 are still going to be, out of range of that guy. Usually when field goals get blocked from that range, it's about a protection breakdown, and the guy who blocks it gets into the backfield. You don't see many short kicks blocked at the line of scrimmage like that. So even a guy that's a foot taller or half a foot taller than a lot of these guys that are blocking these kicks isn't going to make a difference. The other thing is Taco Fall's tall, but he's very skinny. It still takes a couple, like the operation time, it's going to be about 2 seconds by the time the ball gets the line of scrimmage. If that guy doesn't have a sturdy base, the long snapper's just going to come up and push him over. Like, just knock him on his ass.
Gotcha. Okay. I still believe that it would work, but I'll trust you guys on this.
It would work for longer field goals. Like, if you're getting into that 50-plus range where the trajectory has to be lower,
and then you also get...
You are getting in the conversation, but are you going to keep a guy... Are you going to dedicate one to 53 spots to be basically your designated field goal blocker on kicks of 50-plus yards? College football would absolutely do something like this. And maybe this is more of a college thing where the rosters are bigger and the kickers aren't as good. In the NFL, it would work in certain scenarios. It's just you're talking about maybe 7 or 8 plays a year. And are you going to keep a guy on the roster for 7 or 8 plays over the course of a 17 games?
Make him act him on game day.
Right.
All right, before I go, and I'll take this off air, but just curious if either of you have your own outside-the-box ideas for how NFL teams could change what they're doing. But thanks, guys.
Thanks, Ryan. Thanks for the call. And I didn't mean to tease you, but Alex and I...
No, there was this guy...
He was insistent that he had solved football.
He would get mad at us.
Dead set on it.
That we weren't bringing it to Bill, but that wasn't about field goals. It does make more sense on field goals. His thing...
Defensive
I remember
center.
this. The defensive center, 7-footer to stand at the line of scrimmage, and his idea was like the range of motion would limit where the quarterback could throw. But again, it goes back to the point, you got to get a guy that he can't just be 7'2". He has to be 7'2", at least 3 bills, because if you put a guy like Taco Fall out there who's more frail, again, the center's just going to come up and just flick him back and knock him backwards. So
that guy was
he was mad at us,
and he would be coming at us in the comments on the YouTube chats and things
on Twitter
that,
too,
and on Twitter, and insisting that, and this was not even that it makes a difference, but this is before I even worked for the team, and he wanted us to take this to Bill Belichick and like present
he was like,
to
it's
Bill
insane that I'm not employed by an NFL team, blah blah blah. So, but that was the whole other thing. My idea's been done. I for years and years and years and years wondered why teams didn't use a fake knee, and then the Patriots did it in Super Bowl 51. It obviously didn't work. Well, they gained a lot
like
of yards,
but a
fake knee. So at the end of the half, you're about to run it out, or maybe the way the Patriots used was at the end of regulation, but the game is going to overtime. Like you see the defense let up all the time. Either have the quarterback start to go down and then bootleg, or toss it back to a running back or whatever. Usually when you do the knee, who's the guy behind the quarterback? Do you know how that role is picked?
Matthew Slater was it for years. I don't know how.
So do you know how that's usually picked? Maybe some teams do it a little differently.
Best tackler.
No. Traditionally, it's your fastest player.
Fastest.
Because although
tackler
Slater makes sense in this context because you go back to the original Miracle at the Meadowlands, Herm Edwards, right, scooping the ball. You want somebody that if there's a bad snap and the defense picks it up, who's going to do the best job of chasing down the guy who picks up the ball? Right. So, yes, fastest player with an ability to tackle, I guess, would be the caveat on that. So, Matthew Slater obviously makes all the sense in the world for that role. But you have somebody back there who's fast, right? Yeah. Start to go down to that knee and then just flip the ball backwards. And, everybody's all packed in the middle. Let that guy get around the edge. I always wanted to see a fake knee. And I saw one, and I think it's been done like 2 or 3 other times since. End of the half, especially if it's like, the other team scores, you get the ball back off a kickoff, everybody's just kind of mentally like, all right, there's 1 second left, we're going into the half. You can catch them sleeping. The fake knee. That's what I want to see.
So this is starting to come on a little bit. The teams are starting to do this a little bit more.
Yeah.
Basically, my guy Ben Johnson is at the forefront of this in the Detroit Lions. The lateral as a design within a play on offense.
The hook and ladder.
Not just like, yes, but like the hook and ladder, you think of like the Miami Miracle, and you're doing it in a situation where I'm talking about this just in the run of play being more of a thing.
So way back
like
it was. The hook and ladder used to be like a normal play.
I really feel like there's tons of yards being left on the field simply out of fear of catastrophic turnovers happening. But if you're a team like the Lions, and I would say the Chiefs have done it with Travis Kelce quite a bit too, because he used to play quarterback and he's got a decent arm. If you have the cojones to do it, and you have the cohesion to do it, and you practice well enough, and all that kind of stuff, a team that really can do it like they do it overseas in rugby and do it at a high level could really change the game. Like that could really
Yeah.
make a huge impact on the game.
It would also
if
be
you're doing that.
a nightmare for fantasy football, which I would love.
Yep, but it's just a nightmare for defenses. Like you think you got the guy, but now like defenses, think about the defense reaction to it. Now the defense is going to have to, like in rugby, you're going to have discipline to stay with your guy out wide and be able to stay with somebody.
And then you can't gang tackle.
And you can't gang tackle him as easily. It's essentially after the catch, after the ball is down the field, whether it's a run or it's a pass play, I guess. But after the ball's past the line of scrimmage, there just seems to be a lot of untapped potential there.
You want to draw plays up after the catch.
Yes.
Because right now it's okay. You draw up the routes, the ball's caught, and then it's just go. Right? You want to drop, okay, the ball's going to be caught, and then you guys need to be here and go here and things like that.
Yeah, and the Lions have done this. Like the Lions are already doing it, or were with Ben Johnson.
It's kind of similar when the Patriots would run that double screen back in the day.
Like the double pass.
No, not the double pass.
Where they would pass it, but they would pass it out to somebody
one side,
and
all the linemen would pull against the initial screen, and then you'd have James White all the way on the other sideline catching the ball with all 5 linemen in front of him, and you'd basically create what was essentially a gap run play starting outside the numbers.
Yes.
With the defense looking the other way. I like that. How about, and this is done in college. I want to see it in the NFL.
But can I say one more thing about the lateral thing first?
Yeah.
I'm really interested to see if it translates in Chicago, because the always the conversation about this when it gets brought up are the two teams that do it with any kind of frequency are the Chiefs and the Lions, who are two of the best teams in the league, two of the best coach teams in the league, just really buttoned up on the details with both those teams. So the question is can a bad team do it? Because if it's only teams that can master it because they have great practice habits and they have great culture and they're great teams like the Lions and the Chiefs are, then you can't have a team like the Jaguars or the team like the Titans or the Patriots of the last couple years. I mean, granted, we literally saw this, and it wasn't supposed to happen, but in Vegas, with Jacoby Myers was the bad, catastrophic version of what we're going at here.
Yeah.
And so if you can't pull it off with lesser talent like Ben Johnson's going to have in Chicago, then it can't be something that takes over the entire league. It's just not going to be relevant. But if he can take some of those hook and ladder style plays, and he can get the Bears roster to execute those.
Yeah.
Now you can't, all 32 teams can do it if that team can do it. And I'm not trying to take a shot at the Bears, but like that's a team that has much less roster talent than the Detroit Lions. So if they can still pull off some of these trick plays that Ben Johnson has the Lions running over the last couple years.
Look for Ben Johnson.
It's great. Well, it's a great look for Ben Johnson, but it also just means that there's untapped potential. There's more meat on the bone for all 32 teams to be doing stuff like this, whether it's throwing to eligible offensive linemen or it's hooking ladders or it's reverses or whatever the case may be. So I want to see that, and this would be next level, but I love this idea of it too. If this starts to catch on a little bit, then a smart team or smart teams will hire a coach and put a coach from rugby on their coaching staff.
Sure.
And then you can start teaching how to lateral the ball correctly and teach the scheme and the X's and O's of it as well.
So if we want to take this to another level, the other thing you can do that would adjust team building, go out and get some athletic offensive linemen. Because if you're doing this, you don't need to hit on as many deep throws. You maybe don't need your pass protection to be able to hold up as long. And now you can work linemen into the mix with this, and you can have all 11 players at threat to touch the ball. So this was going to go to my other thing, and this is coming from college. Like, this is done in college, not in the NFL. More plays where linemen are eligible to catch the football. You had Tyler Warren this year line up at center, snap the ball, and catch the touchdown. Like, offensive linemen right now are more athletic than they've ever been. And this goes back to Ben Johnson, right? Penei Sewell, they would get him involved in the offense, touching the football and carrying the football. Maybe it's through laterals. Maybe it's through some of the old Bill Belichick, Josh McDaniels, unbalanced lines, things like that.
The tackle, the thing that they did against Baltimore was written out of the rule book, not right?
I don't think so.
I thought it was.
No, I think they just changed the way players declare eligibility or ineligibility.
I'm pretty sure the Ravens raised a stink about it. And
they did raise a stink about it. I think the play itself is still legal. There's just more done to let you know that the alignment's different from the refs. If I might be wrong, but No, but things like that were like, and if you're going to do laterals, like, let's say you throw a quick slant, right? And now you have your left tackle come off his block and pull to the outside, and maybe you have a really athletic left tackle. So the wide receiver's coming on the slant, the tackle comes back the other way, you flip it back to him, and now maybe this big guy can rumble. And if you have him coming to the outside, who's going to be out there waiting for him? Corners.
Or nobody.
But let's say you get 6'6", 310-pound Will Campbell, who ran a sub 540, matched up with the slot corner in the open field. Like, you can't do this all the time, but you pull that out two or three times a year.
I'm telling you, I don't think it's totally crazy to think that this is the future of offensive football.
It's interesting. It's interesting. All right, give me a defensive, and it's harder to do with defense. Give me a defensive thing.
It's harder to do with defense. I don't know.
So I personally would hate this.
Defense is harder. So offense, there's so many creative things you can do. Defense is harder.
So I personally would hate this, but I wonder, like, I've had thoughts of maybe things going this way, and you wouldn't play this way every play. It would be a package or packages. I do feel like we're getting towards a point where an option on defense is going to be, we're going to have a bunch of guys that are from like 5'10 to 6'4", 200 to 240 pounds, and that's going to be all 11 players.
Positionless defense.
Just positionless defense. And, you know, what you're seeing, the evolution of the box safety overlapping with the linebacker, overlapping with the slot corner, you know, third and long, maybe you have a deep safety, and then you just have 10 of those guys, and anybody can do anything, and anybody can come from anywhere. You would need to really, I mean, it would start with the team building, because you can't just pull any random guy to do that. You're going to have to go out and find some really unique individuals in terms of their physical skill set. But I do wonder if that's on the timeline, that we're going to get to a point where a team's going to have a defensive package where it's essentially 11 kind of hybrid box safety, linebacker, slot corner, edge rusher type guys. You tell me the player in the league that this is. Like 11 Fred Warners. Obviously, that sounds insane because Fred Warner's one of one, right? But you get what I'm saying? 11 guys that are just sort of athletes, that are just sort of freak apex athletes, and everybody's doing a little bit of everything, and you're trying to win as much on disguise as you are actual ability.
That's a better suggestion than I would have off the top of my head.
I don't know, and I like
defensively, it's much more about scheme innovation, I would say, than it is about. And I know that my lateral thing is scheme related.
Give me a scheme in
well,
it. So this is my.
Like,
and I don't know that it would
I think
work.
Defense though is like everything with defense is so reactive to what the offense is doing, and it's so cyclical based off of what the offense is doing. The defense, I would love for defense to be able to get on the front foot and like have something that actually took offenses by surprise instead of a reaction.
Well, isn't that what Brian Flores is doing?
Maybe. I don't know. Like Brian Flores is doing like amoeba stuff and like ghost pressures and things like that.
This is where our guy that used to comment at us and get mad at us, he had an idea for this too, not just the defensive forward.
Oh, what was it?
It was have three guys, and it didn't make sense and it wouldn't have worked, but I remember this one too. He was like, the blitz should be an offensive philosophy, not defensive philosophy. Have three players blitz one lineman, and then two guys are bound to get through.
Okay,
which
so
wouldn't work.
Well, it does. Well, but they have that. They have trail blitzes or follow blitzes.
Right.
The Patriots actually run them a lot, or did with Belichick, where you'd have one guy through, and his job was basically just to occupy the first guy, and then somebody would follow right behind his butt,
right
off his hip, and go right into the same exact gap. They call them follow blitzes or trail blitzes, whatever. And defensively. Right now, I feel like defensively, we're in a really cool evolution state with Fangio and pattern matching really taking over. Now,
I think are defense ahead of offenses right now?
A little bit.
Schematically?
Like, I wouldn't say they're ahead, but they have essentially adapted to Shanahan and to the West Coast
So
teams,
this is what I'm saying.
Now there needs to be another pivot.
It's all cyclical, right? The offense has an innovation, and it kind of dominates for a year or two, and then the defense figures out how to crack it. And then, remember last year at the beginning of the year, everybody's complaining that there wasn't enough scoring, and then there'll be a new offensive innovation. I feel like we're on the defensive side of the cycle right now.
So Fangio, and look, pattern matching goes back to Bill and Saban in the 90s. So I want to give Belichick and Saban their credit. They're the first ones that truly invented pattern matching coverage.
Just, the greatest pro and college coach of all time. No big deal.
Fangio's taken it to the next level, though, with like things like palms and stuff like that. But Belichick and I actually got a really good answer from Belichick. One of my early good questions on the beat when maybe there was hope for me as a question asker to Bill, and he said, "Oh, we could write a book about this." But if I remember it correctly, I don't remember which one it was. One of them was from a zone background, and one of them was from a man background. And what they ended up doing, they were facing the Pittsburgh Steelers a lot in Cleveland, and they were a cover 3 defense in Cleveland. A cover 3 spot drop zone, and Pittsburgh was just absolutely torching the Browns with 4 verts, which is so silly. It's like the basic play. It's the most basic play in football. 4 vertical routes right up the field. But if you think about it, you have 3 deep coverage guys. How are you covering 4 vertical routes with only 3 guys, right? Someone's going to be open. So they're killing them with 4 verts. So Bill and Saban got together, and they really put together the first iteration of pattern matching. And with their at the simplest form of pattern matching, you are carrying vertical routes like it's man-to-man coverage, and you're passing off underneath routes. So there'll be a depth, 6 yards, 8 yards. I believe Saban goes at 8, where you make that determination as a defender.
Yeah.
At 8 yards, is he declaring up the field or is he breaking? If he's breaking, you're passing it like it's zone. If he's running up the field, you're carrying it like it's man-to-man coverage. And that way there, the slot corner, especially in Cleveland, became the 4th high guy, right? So now you had 4 guys high. So you could cover over the top of 4 vertical routes. Then that started in Cleveland. Then Rip Liz comes. Rip Liz is what is Saban's thing. He's really considered the godfather of Rip Liz coverage, which is again a pattern matching like a man match pattern match coverage. And it's just Rip Liz is about the safeties, like which way are you rotating left or are you rotating right? That's how you get Rip R right, Liz left. That's how that's broken down. It's all determined by the receivers. Like, do they run under or do they run over? Do they run up, I should say. Then Fangio comes in, and Fangio starts running what most people call palms, which is a quarters-based coverage. And it's pattern matching, but from quarters-based structure, so 4 deep over the top. And essentially all it's doing is allowing defenders to cancel out routes. Like you have number 1, if number 1 runs an out under, but if number 1 runs vertical, then you move on to number 2. And then whoever is the first guy into your zone, you're kind of taking, right? So that in a lot of ways has caught up to these McVay, Shanahan, McDaniel, like that tree, the floor in Green Bay. That was the answer to all of those types of things. So where do they go now is probably back to an answer of how do they now adjust to Fangio's defense? Like how do the offensive guys adjust to Fangio's defense? With Fangio's defense, you're really covering receivers out of zone instead of windows. When you spot drop, you're covering windows of the field, whereas when you man-to-man, you're covering a specific body. So it'd be interesting to see how they're able to do that. But that's when I look at defensive football, I always think about it in that respect. It's always reactionary. I don't know if there is something that is forward thinking that a defense could possibly do to react to an offense. It would be cool to think of. So maybe some of the listeners have some ideas, but we can get back to the phones. We have some emails as well. And this is a good one from Dylan. He has a little... are you happy with this season, if this is a stat line for this player? So tell me if you're happy with this.
Yep.
For Drake May, 4,100 yards, 30 touchdowns, 16 picks. Are you happy with that season?
Again, I'm going to put the fumbles in there too. If there's lost fumbles on top of 16 picks, that's the turnover number is still very high. I wouldn't be unhappy with it, but there'd still be a way to go.
You know me, I'm happy with it. I'm happy with it because when I see 4,100 yards and 30 touchdowns, the high ends are there, and I understand your thinking on that, but this is quarterbacking.
Call it 16 turnovers and not 16 interceptions, and I'd be very happy with that.
That's fair. So this one, I'd be over the moon if Kyle Williams puts up these numbers. Kyle Williams, 60 catches, 650 yards, 5 touchdowns.
Great.
I'd be
That's
over
a
the
good
moon.
start. Yep.
If he puts up that kind of
I'd like him to be better down the road, but that's a solid rookie season.
That's over the 5.55 club, right? Like
Yeah.
if you're over that, that means you're on your way to being a really good receiver in the league. Keon White, 7 sacks, 35 tackles, 10 tackles for loss.
Yeah, that'd be a solid season.
I'm not so happy with that one.
That'd be fine.
Wasn't he right around 7 sacks last year because he had all those sacks at the beginning of the season?
Yeah, well, how
So-
are they distributed? If he has 7 sacks in the
He had
first 3
5
weeks,
last year, so not quite.
if he has 7 sacks in the first 4 weeks and then does nothing after that, that would be kind of disappointing. But
Yeah.
that would be fine. I think the ceiling should be higher for him in this defense. I do.
Yeah.
I do. He's going to be able to play more aggressively. I think the production is going to be higher for him.
Want a fullback question?
Yes.
Where do you rank James Devlin in the greatest fullbacks of all time? He says, this is from Jonathan. He says Mike Allstott's number 1. But where is
Well, I mean, how are we doing this? Because Jim Brown was technically a fullback.
like true fullbacks?
Like the lead blocking fullback
Yeah.
you're talking about.
Yeah.
So we're not including Larry Zonka here.
No.
Okay. Mike Allstott is number 1. Lorenzo Neal is number 2.
Yeah. I agree with that.
Who else? Who else is in there? What was on the? Larry Centers.
I was going to say, what do you mean? Who else is in there? You're not even going to name your boy Larry Centers.
Well, because I'm thinking of blockers since we're doing that little. Those are the top 3 to me. After that, Vontae Leach is up there. Tony Richardson's up there. He's definitely in the top 10. I don't know that he's in the top 5.
Yeah, a lot of these lists that I'm quickly pulling up here have Larry Zonka, Jim Brown, Franco Harris,
Right.
which were they were what was that word? It was a different word back in the day. They're fullbacks, but because of their alignments, I guess.
What do you
I
think?
think Daryl-
Tailback?
No, Daryl Johnson, I think, is the same kind of thing, right?
Oh, Sam Gash. I actually don't know. I don't remember that much about Sam Gash. I don't know.
John Kuhn, remember John
Kuhn. Kuhn.
Yeah, he was good.
Patriot for a second?
Was he?
Or am I thinking of Danny Vitale?
Like Mike Tolbert to me was a running back.
Mike Tolbert was a running back.
Like Lorenzo Neal was a true fullback. LaDainian Tomlinson's lead blocker.
Right.
Like that was a true. Who was the
John Kuhn was not a Patriot.
didn't
Sam Gash. I don't know. I don't
why
remember
do
enough
I
about
feel
Sam
like the
Gash.
Cowboys had one
But
with
Sam
Evan Smith?
Gash, from what I know, was a very good player, and he blocked for some great running backs. He blocked for Curtis Martin.
Yep.
He blocked for Jamal Lewis. I think was he there when Lewis set? No, that would have been after him when Lewis set the single game rushing record. Sam Gash is up there.
Who was? Someone was it Lorenzo Neal? Did he move on to Minnesota to block for Adrian Peterson for a little bit?
I think that was Vontae Leach.
I remember the Vikings having a good one for Adrian Peterson there for a second.
I'll look it up. No, Lorenzo Neal was Saints, Jets, Bucks, Titans, Bengals, Chargers, Ravens.
Okay, I don't know who it was then. So,
But I don't know. He might be in the top 10. There's some all-time great stuff.
So I believe the one I'm thinking of, and I this is truly showing my age here because I can't even, I don't
In
know.
Minnesota?
No, the one I was thinking of in
Tony Richardson was,
and-
I think, who you're thinking of.
The one in Dallas, Daryl Johnston, who was the Emmitt Smith's lead blocker.
Yeah, but I think he was more in that Larry Zonka. I think he carried the ball a good amount.
Okay. But yeah, those are some other ones that in the annals of NFL history. I don't know if James Devlin's better than some of those guys. Frankly, I didn't watch a ton of those guys. It was before my time, but I would say Devlin's in a
I think James
a conversation. I don't know if he's in the conversation.
I think he was the best fullback of his era.
That's
now
probably
there
fair.
were only so many fullbacks during that time, and that might be part of it. But I mean, the golden age for the lead blocking fullback is the late '90s and early 2000s. Allstott is the apex. Lorenzo Neal is up there. Larry Centers was not a traditional fullback, but he's up there as well. Larry Centers should be a Pro Football Hall of Famer. I mean, what he did as a receiver, nobody was catching the ball out of the backfield like Larry Centers until he did. And nobody did it for about 10 years after he
Nobody
retired.
caught it like Larry.
Literally, there were no 1,000-yard receiving backs until Larry Centers. And then I think it was another 6 or 7 years before LaDainian Tomlinson did it. And I think the only guys that have done it since are McCaffrey and Matt Forte. Sneaky underrated player, Matt Forte, by the way.
Oh, is he sneaky? I feel like Matt
I mean, I
Forte
don't think he's going to be a
rated.
Hall of Famer.
No, he's
But,
not a Hall of Famer.
So have you seen this guy? It started as a baseball thing, and now there's a basketball one. This is big on social media. The Hall of Very Good.
That to me, that's just a team Hall of Fame.
Well, no, this guy started this thing where he like actually has people vote for the Hall of Very Good, and the players like acknowledge it. It's very fun. Matt Forte is a first ballot Hall of Very Good player. I don't think he's a Hall of Famer, but he had
Matt Forte is a Chicago Bears Hall of Famer.
He had 5,000 yard season, should have had 6. He was 3 yards short one year. He never had a 1,000-yard receiving season, but he had 800. Oh, it was 100 catch seasons. That's what it did have 100 catch season as a back for Chicago in 2014. Like, I don't know. I don't think he gets enough. And there were so many good running backs in that era. I don't think he gets enough credit. I don't know that he's Hall of Fame, but I don't think he gets enough credit.
To me, Hall of Very Good is just what the Team Hall of Fame is for. That's how you honor those types of players.
No, well, but
Matt Forte
it's more than that.
No, because that's like Matt Forte is a Bears
Hall
of Famer.
But how
Julian
do
Edelman
we
is
as
a Patriots Hall of
fans?
Famer.
How do we as Patriots fans recognize Matt Forte then? What, are you going to put him in the Patriots Hall of Fame?
You need to recognize Matt Forte.
That's what I'm saying. He should be more recognized as a good player. Yes, that's my whole point.
You're gonna die. You're really. It's killing you that you can't recognize Matt Forte's greatness.
The generic football fan who's not a Bears fan can't. Yes.
I think he'll be all right.
That's the whole point.
I think he'll live.
Hall Very Good.
Here's a question from Steve, to be exact.
Yeah.
He asks, what will you need to see from the offensive line in training camp to feel confident going into the season?
I don't think there's an answer to that. I got to see it in the preseason. I don't, even if they're good in the preseason, I'm just so at this point, I need to see real results.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's a cop-out answer, Evan. You tell me, but like I don't.
No, because like it's so vanilla in the preseason in terms of what they're throwing at you schematically.
Yeah.
And so you're not really getting into all the different pressures that you're going to see in a regular season game, especially on third down in the preseason. Some coaches will turn it up. Wade Martindale used to get on Bill's nerves for turning it up.
I remember that.
But some coaches would turn it up in preseason. But for the most part, you're looking at some pretty vanilla stuff. And I would say, though, in general, even though it's not quite, I'm not going to anoint him off of it, but I am really looking forward to seeing Will Campbell on film, because it's hard in these practices to, of course, the spring is thrown out. I mean, you're not in pads, but even when they get into pads and you're watching practice, it's hard to break down the offensive line in practice.
Yeah.
It's a lot of moving parts. Things are flying all over the place. Like, you just can't really see it as well. So if you watch the film in the 3 preseason games, let's say he plays 2 or 3 of 2.5 or 3 or whatever, for Will Campbell, if you watch that and Will Campbell's, looks the part, it passes the eye test, moves well, all those types of things. If he's at least blocking one-on-one at a really good level, I'm going to feel a little bit better. But I don't think that you can really, especially on the interior, when you're going to see so many different pressures and so many different looks on the interior. The outside is, you're getting an edge rusher out there one way or another. Like, it's not really, that's not really where the spicy stuff happens. The spicy stuff happens inside with the stunts and the gaming and the sim pressures and all that kind of, that stuff typically comes from the inside. So that's going to be hard to see at center, at guard, left guard. Like, how are they handling that? Tackle, you can see if Will Campbell can survive on an island in the preseason. I don't know about the interior spots. This is a good question here that keeps getting asked, but I might as well keep answering it. Michael in Tucson, we have a lot of Patriots fans in Arizona. Yeah. I've noticed that in Tucson. Have you discussed TreVeyon Henderson's contract status? So TreVeyon Henderson, along with 30 other second-round picks, 30 of the 32.
And the two exceptions are the top two picks.
Yeah, are unsigned. Currently unsigned.
36 to whatever, 64.
Do not have contracts. So is the guaranteed money versus 80% or another percent something that we can see? So basically he's asking, like, how much guaranteed money. So typically for second-round picks, you typically see 3 out of the 4 years guaranteed on their rookie contract. Towards the end of the second round, maybe teams start to get a little bit looser with it, and it's more like 2.5.
Yeah.
But it's typically 3 out of 4 years. The problem is, thank you, Nick Caserio and the Houston Texans, they gave Jaden Higgins a fully guaranteed contract, all 4 years, fully guaranteed, like a first-round pick. So now the rest of the second round is
and then the Browns
out.
did that with Carson Schwarzenegger.
So everybody's holding out now for fully guaranteed contracts in the second round. My guess is that this gets settled with top 50 picks getting the fully guaranteed deals. If you're the 60th pick in the draft, I don't think you're going to get it. I don't think you're going to be able to win that negotiation. TreVeyon Henderson might have a case. He might have a case.
Here's the other interesting variable when it comes to Henderson.
He's a running back?
Well, there's that side of it. Although he has a running back two ahead of him in Quinshawn Judkins, who plays for the Browns, who already gave Carson Schwarzenegger a fully guaranteed contract, who's a linebacker, which is another devalued position. So that's going to help him because he's going to be able to say Quinshawn Judkins got a fully guaranteed contract. 2 picks after Travion Henderson. You mentioned the cutoff being a top 50. 2 picks after Travion Henderson, the New Orleans Saints took Tyler Shuck, who's probably going to be their starting quarterback.
Yeah.
So
funny.
He has all the leverage in the world to get the fully guaranteed contract.
Tyler Shuck got drafted in the 2nd round because he made that one underhand throw in a red zone touchdown that made the rounds all throughout draft season, and he got drafted on that one throw.
And because he's already an adult, so there's less development time, even though he's not developing into much.
I have a question about that, but finish your point.
Travion Henderson, I think anybody who's ahead of Tyler Shuck is going to be waiting for Tyler Shuck to sign. Tyler Shuck, to me, is the domino. He's got to sign first, and then once he signs, because then all the guys that are picked ahead of him say, I don't care, he's quarterback. He was picked after me. I should get a fully guaranteed contract, and then we'll see what happens after him. I think that's more where the cutoff is. Top 50, certainly there's just that sort of objective top 50 pick, but Tyler Shuck's the variable here. We got to see what happens with Tyler Shuck.
So you brought up an interesting point about Tyler Shuck and how old he is. He's like 30, right? Or whatever.
He's comically. Tyler Shuck's first year in college was Joe Burrow's first year at LSU.
I'm like only kind of half joking. He's like 27 or 26.
I think he's going to be a 26-year-old rookie. Turns 26 in September.
Tyler Shuck's the extreme. But you also have
when Tyler Shuck began his college career, Tom Brady was a 5-time Super Bowl champion.
You also have Jaden Daniels, who was a 6-year player in college. Younger player than Shuck, but a 6-year player in college. Now, some of this was forced on the NFL.
Jaden Daniels full 2 years behind Tyler Shuck.
Some of this is forced on the NFL by COVID.
Yeah.
Mainly pushing everybody back. But also now with NIL, there's not as much incentive for these guys to rush to the league. I just wonder, is the NFL, not necessarily with Tyler Shucks of the world, but with Jaden Daniels specifically.
Yeah.
Is the NFL now going to pivot with quarterback and say, we need to go back to evaluating quarterbacks that are coming into the league with legitimate starter experience, like 50 college starts, like Jaden Daniels level of experience?
Wasn't the cutoff usually like 25?
Yeah, Parcells had that thing, right, where he had like these thresholds for this. The reason why I asked this, and I hope that year 2 for Drake May goes incredibly well, but there's no doubt that it ended up panning out the way that we thought, with Jaden Daniels being the most pro-ready quarterback and Caleb and Drake May looking toolsy, looking flashy, and with a ton of potential. But if Caleb Williams just kind of flames out, let's call it, in Chicago after a rough rookie year, and Drake May doesn't necessarily rise, would we look at evaluating quarterbacks and go and say the guys that have been in college for a long time might actually have more value because they're ready to step in and hit the ground running right away? Because I think in the past, I remember talking about this with the Mac Jones draft. Mac was the more pro-ready quarterback, but everybody knew that his ceiling wasn't as high as some of the other guys, but thought that he had a higher floor. So usually when you have like the true junior declare, like a Caleb Williams or a Drake May, you think that they have this higher ceiling because they're younger and they've already reached a certain level and they have more runway to get better. But could we really see it go the other way, with Jaden Daniels being really the poster child for it, where now all of a sudden the experience comes back into play? Because it used to be that way.
I think so, especially since the college game and pro game are so similar for quarterbacks now offensively, and you're seeing more of the spread stuff come to the NFL, that there's less of that translation, that you're just going to – teams want to feel more comfortable to know what they're getting, and you're going to know what you're getting with the guy that has more starts.
It used to be that way. That was the senior, the guy that was a 3-4 year starter. So Parcells is his thresholds and his rule of thumbs for quarterbacks, rules to draft quarterbacks: 3-year starter, 23 wins, and then he had some like statistical thresholds, right? I think it was like 2-1 or 3-1 interception, touchdown interception, like things like that.
Well, you look at a guy, so for instance...
And he must be a senior, was another one.
So
must be a senior.
You look at a guy like this year in Fernando Mendoza, who was the quarterback at Cal. He just transferred. He'll be at Indiana this year. He's at Cal the last 2 years. Fernando Mendoza is not the most eye-popping quarterback prospect. He's a big guy, 6'5", 225. He's got the size, but, like, he's not the most mobile. He doesn't have the biggest arm. Like, they're good. They're NFL caliber, but I don't know that he doesn't have that one wow trait, right? He's just solid. He's a solid college quarterback. Guys like that are usually second, third, fourth round picks. And he's, by the way, he's going to turn 22 years old this season. So he'll be a 23-year-old rookie. Like, guys like that are usually second, third round picks. I just pulled up our little consensus board. Number 7. You know why? He's polished. He's proven. This is going to be his third, essentially, full year as a starter. He started 9 games in 2023. Got hurt late in the year. But, like, started 9 games in 2023, 11 games last year, led Cal to a winning record. If he can do the same thing at Indiana this year in the Big Ten, like, that's not a guy that was going to get a ton of attention a couple of years ago. And, look, maybe he'll bottom out and suck. But, like, if he has a decent season, he's going to get looks because he's just a known commodity.
I just wonder if
value
he's, like a guy like Drake May. Caleb was a 3-year starter because he started a lot at Oklahoma.
Yeah.
And then he started 2 years at USC. Drake May was a 2-year starter at North Carolina. Sam Howell was the starter, and then he was the starter for 2 years. The guys like Garrett Nussmeier is going to be a 2-year starter, right? Because Jaden Daniels was the starter, and then Nussmeier started last year, and then he'll start this year. What's the kid from Clemson?
Cade Klubnik.
Yeah.
I have my own reservations about Cade Klubnik, but they're separate from this conversation.
Is he a multi-year starter?
Yeah.
So that Mel Kiper has him high in his like way too early mock drafts, and I wonder if that's why.
Well, how exactly these Dabo quarterbacks panned out is a bigger question for me.
Well, Deshaun Watson was pretty good before he.
Since then, Cade Klubnik has started 27 games over the last 2 years.
So he'd fit this mold. What was the SEC kid? Was the
Nussmeier?
No, there was another guy.
Lenore Sellers?
Yes.
Lenore Sellers is going to be interesting.
Yeah.
Because he is...
And then obviously there's Arch, who we'll see if he declares.
Did you see Paul Feinbaum said Arch Manning is going to be the best college quarterback since Tim Tebow?
I mean, it's Paul Feinbaum.
It's a ridiculous take.
I mean, he has ridiculous
That includes
takes.
Cam Newton.
He has ridiculous takes.
And that's an all-timer. I'm interested in Lenore Sellers. I'm interested. I'm not saying he's good. I'm just saying I'm interested.
Toolsy, I assume.
Very toolsy.
Yeah.
Incredibly, like, the guy's fearless. He's so fun to watch play quarterback, and it works for him. Now, is it going to continue to work for him now that there's more tape on him? That's kind of the question. But he's 6'3", 240. He's got a big arm. He's a smart kid. He takes risks. Like, he's got a lot of the tools. It's just he's only started 1 year. He's young. He just turned 20. He's going to be he's going to play this season at 20 years old. So we'll see if he comes out. He might stay another year. But there's a lot there to like. We'll see if it all comes together. Kind of like DJ Lagway. Lagway's a little more physically impressive. Real quick, you want the quarterbacks that were in Tyler Shuck's recruiting class?
Hit me.
This is the 2018 class ranking. Trevor Lawrence, I think, is on his 3rd NFL contract, right?
Yeah, or it's at least 2nd.
Justin Fields, 3rd NFL team. JT Daniels, bust. Tanner McKee, bust. I don't even know who Justin Rogers is. DTR.
Oh.
Jaron Williams. Matt Corral. Tyler Shuck.
Jeez.
That was top of that class.
Matt Corral is... I don't even know if he's on an NFL
he
roster.
He is tearing up the UFL.
There you go.
Phil Dracovic is in here. Emory Jones, if you remember him. Emory Jones might still be in college.
I'm very interested.
Tanner Mordecai once threw 10 touchdowns in a game.
I'm very interested to see where this heads. All this stuff.
Emory Jones on
we were
the
talking
Falcons.
Scheme earlier. All this stuff is so cyclical in terms of scouting as well. Jaden Daniels' success in the league, an immediate success in the league as an adult, as a 24-year-old that started for 5 years in college, 6 years in college. I just wonder if evaluating quarterbacks starts to head back into that direction with the Parcells way, 3-year starters, true senior or above, tons of experience in college, polished kids, things like that. A couple of the guys that I saw on the list that they brought up that fit that were like the Mannings, Breeze, Roethlisberger, like all throughout that era. Even Brady, didn't have necessarily all the starting experience, I don't think, because he was splitting time, but he went to Michigan for the entire time, right? He was a 4-year player at Michigan. So there's a lot of that type of stuff that I'm interested in.
QB 34 in that class? Joe Milton.
Here's an email from Anthony. It says, first off, what an incredible analogy Season 2 Family Guy was truly amazing. I can
best.
still hear Lois mocking Peter. We'll take the box.
Yeah, we'll take the box. Sold a boat for a pair of concert tickets.
So just so people are aware, that scene
It's a Family Guy bit.
is a Family Guy bit. You probably explained the scene better
So
than me.
basically, it's the setup to the episode. They get like a thing in the mail that says if you go sit through this timeshare presentation, you'll get a free boat. And everybody
Right.
on the street gets it, and they're like, all right, we'll get a free boat. So they go, they sit through the presentation, and it's, you think dumb cartoon dad is going to buy the timeshare. No, gets through it. They're sitting in the office with the salesman, and he goes, so, can we get you to sign up? And he goes, save me your trick, salesman. Where's my boat? Salesman goes, wait, you haven't heard. You can get the boat, or you can get the mystery box. He kind of shakes it in front of him, like, ooh. And Lois goes, what are you, crazy? We'll take the boat. And Peter goes, no, hang on. The boat's the boat. But the mystery box could be anything. It could even be a boat.
Yeah.
You know how much we've wanted one of those. And Lois starts saying, and he cuts her off. He goes, we'll take the box. And then they're driving home, and all their neighbors have their boats, and they're looking at their boats. And Lois goes, we'll take the box. You trade in a boat for it. And they end up being tickets to a comedy club.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
And so we use that a lot with players. Like
I think we first
this player,
used it.
The potential of this player could be anything. It could be a boat.
But it's specifically when you're talking about two players. So the
Yeah.
first time I saw it used like that was when the Titans traded away A.J. Brown instead of paying him to draft Treylon Burks.
Yeah.
That was Treylon Burks could be anything.
Yeah.
He could even be A.J. Brown.
Yeah.
You know how much we've wanted a guy like A.J.
Yeah.
Brown.
Yeah. So in this email, Anthony said, with that being said, you cannot trade Keon for Watt. As Evan pointed out, we aren't win now. Let Keon flourish with good coaching. I believe he will still be a top rusher in this league. It's a fair point. They definitely have a more runway with Keon White.
So I will say this, though. When it comes to that position
could even be a boat.
And when it comes to that position specifically, the pushback anytime I use mystery box or the boat is the other players. Younger, he's cheaper,
Right.
yada, 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 whatever. This staff, Mike Vrabel, Terrell Williams, Zach Kerr, right? I trust them to develop pass rushers.
Yeah.
So you get Trey Hendrickson, who in 2025 is going to be better than Keon White. And then I trust them to go into the draft next year and find a long-term option. I trust them to find another Keon White in the draft. At another position, I might feel differently and be like, all right, no, you're a young team. You want to stick with the youth here, blah, 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 whatever. I trust this staff to go find a pass rusher. I do.
Yeah, it's a good point. All right, let's get back to these calls and wrap up the show here. But man, I literally always laugh at the Family Guy thing. I can't help it. I've seen it 1,000 times.
That episode was
it's just
on the
so
other
funny.
day, and I was like, oh,
Yeah,
there it is.
It's just so perfect.
The mystery
It's
box
so
or the
Peter.
boat.
All right, Craig is in South Carolina. What's up, Craig?
Hello?
Hey, what's up?
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Yeah, go for it.
Cool. How you guys doing?
Good.
For some reason the volume went down. But anyways, congrats on the marriage.
Thank you.
Let's see. I've been married 33 years this time, and actually involved in some marriage counseling. So I just wanted to say, put God first in your marriage. He'll weather the storms for you, and also a good marriage is two great forgivers. So always forgive before you go to sleep. Anyways, so I'm going to take that off. But I have a question about in the off season, all the quarterbacks like Brady. He used to work out with Edelman, and let's see, there's another one that would work out with his name. Gosh, I'm blanking on his name. But anyways, Manny used to work out with Marvin Harrison. So I'm wondering what is Drake May doing, or is he allowed to work out with some of his receivers? That's my question.
Yeah, Craig, thanks for the call, and thanks for the marriage advice. The don't go to bed mad at each other one I've heard a lot, and that's good advice. I would say that. In my very young, very experienced relationship self can tell you that. Yeah, he could do that. They could have summits or something like that. Brady would take his guys to Montana, right, and at his house in Montana, and they could do that sort of thing.
They went and they threw last year.
Yeah, they went. I'm sure that they have something. Drake. Congratulations to him as well. He just got married.
There you go.
So he's a little busy.
You guys can bond over that.
Maybe. He's a little busy at the moment, so I understand that. Trust me, I definitely understand that. So I don't know if he's necessarily doing that right this second, but that's totally cool. Like there's no rules against it at all in the NFL as long as there's no coaches present. There's no team personnel present for that workout. The players can do whatever they want. They can get together and have a passing summit. Usually it's the quarterback, or sometimes it's even a veteran receiver if the quarterback's younger. I would say like a guy like Kendrick Bourne feels like a type of guy that might do something like that and put something like that together. So definitely possible. I haven't heard of that happening yet. Like I said, Drake's getting married or got married, and then July 4th is in a couple days, but maybe afterwards we might hear about something like that. Patty is in Agawam. What's up, Patty?
Hey guys, what's going on? Can you hear me okay?
Yep. Yeah, we got you.
All right, sorry, hold on. Sorry, I was just climbing off of a roof, so.
Okay, be careful.
Yeah, first off, I wanted to say congrats, Evan.
Thank you.
And thank you. Yeah, the piece of advice of never going to bed mad is good. The other thing is, the other big thing that my wife and I never do, we've been married for over 10 years. We don't fight about money. We always seem to come to a compromise. I always try to apply logic. She always tries to apply emotion, but we meet somewhere in the middle, which is a good thing. I'm sorry if you guys already covered this. I wasn't able to listen to most of the show. But do you think with the trade that we saw a couple days ago that we're going to get, how everything happens in bunches in the NFL, like prior to the 2022 draft, we saw those wide receivers traded. Do you think we're going to see a little bit more player-for-player trades, within the next couple weeks or like once training camp hits? Nothing crazy, but just more of what we saw. Maybe not as big of a name as Ramsey and Jonnu Smith and Minka Fitzpatrick. And I'll take that off air. And the last thing for you, Alex, is when are you coming over to .com full time? That's all I got. I'll take it off air, guys.
Thanks, Patty. Appreciate it. You like talking about other sports too much.
Yeah.
That's a big thing.
I can't give up.
You can't give up your.
I was about to say I can't give up talking about the Red Sox, but they're testing that. They're testing that.
So I don't know if we'll see a flurry of trades for player now, like today or tomorrow. I don't know. I have no idea. But in general, I do feel like we might start seeing that more in general. Player for player trades, similarly to like what we see in other leagues. I do think that those are becoming a little bit more popular in the NFL.
Well, some of it is because there's less practice time now. So you miss, like the reason there were never player for player trades, like in baseball, you just plug a guy in the lineup and you tell him to go hit. He doesn't need to learn a whole playbook. In basketball and hockey, it's a little more involved, but the systems aren't necessarily as different. In football, because there's so much carryover between systems now, it is a little easier to kind of swap player for player into the season. And we are sort of into the season, right? The whole spring install is done.
Yep.
And not worry about guys missing as much. Like I think a guy like Jonnu Smith has been in Arthur Smith's offense. So it's going to be easy for him to catch up.
Yeah, that's a good point. All right, last call here. Z is in Massachusetts. What's up, Z?
Hey, how you guys doing? What do you think of A.J. Moore for a second and a fourth?
DJ Moore, you mean? In Chicago?
Yeah, DJ Moore.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know if that was A.J. Moore or DJ Brown.
Thanks for the call, Z. I figured he meant DJ Moore. I love DJ Moore, the player.
I would take A.J. Moore. They need a deep safety, but he's been retired.
I like DJ Moore, the player. I've always liked his game. He didn't have the greatest of seasons last year, just in general, just body language-wise wasn't the greatest either. I don't know if it would take that much at this point. DJ Moore, to me, feels a little bit below the DK Metcalf, Terry McLaurin
He's
level.
also not that kind of receiver struggled in McDaniel's offense.
Yeah, he's a little bit but he can run routes on the outside.
He's a little more scheme touchy, isn't he?
A little bit. He's versatile.
I don't know. I wouldn't be against it. They need the talent. I just don't know. Like you said, that's not adding a Terry McLaurin, adding a DK Metcalf. I don't even know if he'd be above. I mean, health aside, I don't even know if he'd be above Diggs, really. I still think Diggs would be your primary wide receiver addition if he's fully healthy.
I think he's probably younger and healthier than Diggs, so maybe that tips
the
scale. But he's definitely a tier below Metcalf and McLaurin to me. But he's a good player. He definitely would be one of their best receivers. But that's the bar is not very high there. But yeah, I could see that, but I don't think it would take quite as much. I think you could actually get DJ Moore maybe even for like a 4th round pick. Like, look at like what Amari Cooper's been going for in some of these trades that he's moved in.
Yeah.
It seems like a little similar to something like that. So that's the show today. Like I said, next week we are going to have a pre-taped edition of Catch-22, so we won't be live, but we do have something come for you guys. You guys asked us a bunch of mailbag questions on Twitter. I'm going to get to as many of those as I possibly can here with Alex, and we're going to post that on Wednesday at noon on the 9th, just like we would have a show. Instead, we're going to have this pre-taped podcast, and we're going to cross our fingers that there's no breaking news that completely wipes out the whole show. But with July 4th weekend coming up, I feel pretty good.
If there is, I think I'll just come back and we'll get Mike Dussault here. And we'll
get Deuce can cover, because if I try to do a show the day before my wedding, I think Jess will literally kill me. So I'm not going to try to do that.
I would be disappointed.
But it would have to be monumental breaking news. It would have to be massive breaking news. So we'll have that for you guys next week. And then I will be back in 2 weeks in studio. So show next week pre-taped. No show the week of the 16th. But then the following week, training camp.
It's camp. We're back.
It is training camp. So we'll be back for you guys in a couple of weeks live, but we'll have a show for you guys next week as well. So hopefully that's not too confusing, but you'll hear from us next week, and then we'll see you guys live here in a few weeks. Thanks so much for listening. Alex Barth, Alex Behind the Glass, Evan Lazar. See you guys in a few weeks.
Bye.
Hey, this is Deuce. Thanks for tuning into the show. If you really want to help us, make sure you like us wherever you get your podcasts, like Apple Podcasts or Spotify. Also, make sure you follow us on the New England Patriots YouTube channel to see this show and everything else that we do here at the Patriots. Thanks a lot.